Tonight on the Random Nintendo podcast, has subscription gaming gone too far? A new Shantae game, and Prince Harry thinks Fortnite shouldn't be allowed?
It took us 200 episodes to do that type of intro? How? How did we not do the local news, like, sizzle reel thing?
I'm honestly surprised we haven't even done it jokingly.
I know. That's weird. We should probably, like, just for old time's sake, do it the normal way.
Yeah,
so,
I skipped a lot of stuff, so.
You sure did. You really highlight the, like, minimal, the smallest things.
Well, I highlighted the things that would appear on a news, like, I don't know.
That's true.
Something as, like, trivial as Prince Harry thinking
Fortnite shouldn't be addictive. Well, you know, like a normal news broadcast, what we need to do next is introduce ourselves as the anchors. So, hello and welcome to episode 200 of the Random Tail Podcast. I am Jason.
I'm Angel.
Listen to that enthusiasm. That's the type of enthusiasm you only get after 199 of these in the can.
Then you spin around.
What?
You're supposed to spin around.
Neither did you.
Yeah, but...
I mean, this is audio. So, but anyway, in case you missed the key part, this is episode 200. And I have an air horn that's not playing. There it is. 200 episodes of Random Tail Podcast. Did you know that there are actually as many episodes of the Random Tail Podcast now as there are...
as there were Pokemon at some point?
No, yes. As there were Pokemon at some point, as there were...
as high as some kids can count?
Listen, if you got to 200 moons in Mario Odyssey, congratulations. That's the number of episodes we now have. But no, what I was going to say is there are as many episodes of this podcast as there are micro games in the original WarioWare. Which, like, more than any other factoid we just said, I feel like is the best factoid for our show because it was both random and it was Nintendo. Like, that is the most obscure reference you could probably make. Given the milestone, we are going to be spending some time later in the show reminiscing a bit about some of our favorite moments. And we're also going to have a giveaway of 2 $20 eShop cards for you guys to join in the celebration. So stay tuned for info on that. But all of you out there may have noticed that our episode title is not the Channel 5 News at 11, believe it or not. It's looking to the future, which is kind of the opposite of what I just described. Like, reminiscing, talking about the past, that's not what the title's about. And that's because this episode is actually really about where we're going next. Like, not necessarily the podcast or the two of us, but gaming, all of us together as a whole. Like, if this is Mario Party 10, we're all in the same car going space together. Where's gaming? That was 10, right?
Yeah.
Good.
And
Where's
9.
gaming? And 9. Where's gaming taking us next? So we're going to be talking about Stadia. We're going to talk about Apple Arcade, really the rise of these, like, service-first gaming platforms and what it means for Nintendo. Plus, what's next for Nintendo itself, which now includes reports of 2 new pieces of Switch hardware, and pretty much out of nowhere, a larger than expected commitment to VR with Labo VR. Like, it started just like this little thing, and then suddenly, like, Nintendo's going, I wouldn't say all in, but much more in than it seemed like they were going to do.
It's definitely the least amount of in you could get because they're using cardboard.
But they're doing it in their biggest game. So it's kind of a weird thing they're doing. So we're going to talk about what that's all about.
I mean, you could say, like, Sony went all in on VR.
Yeah. No, they're going as in as they can with cardboard. But they're doing it with their biggest IPs, which is kind of surprising. So that's where the looking part of our episode comes from, with looking to the future, because you look in the cardboard. Anyway, timestamps, as always, on the blog post ramtown.com under this video if you're on YouTube. If you're listening there, I call it a video, but really it's just audio. But yeah, it really does feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it really does feel like we're at, like, an inflection point with this episode, this milestone episode, because we've been doing this since November 2011, and for the most part, the industry has been on a familiar course. You buy a game, you play a game, maybe you play some post-release content for that game, but that's that. That's where it ends. I mean, in the last few years, sure, it evolved a bit. You know, what if the game's post-release content just keeps coming, like we see with Fortnite, which Prince Harry's scandalous. Prince Harry says it's addictive. But, you know, we see it with Fortnite. We saw it with Splatoon. Splatoon has always, over the years, been our go-to games as service game since it first came out on Wii U, and we'd always reference that. And more recently, you know, there's been some dabbling in cloud gaming, even on Switch in Japan with things like Resident Evil 7. But still, you're paying for access to a particular game for a set amount of time. At the end of the day, the pattern has always been, for as long as we've been doing this podcast, for as long as gaming has existed, you see a specific game, you buy a specific game in some capacity, in some medium, and then you play that specific game as a single entity in your library, and that's that. And if you listen to our last episode, you know that's what we focused on when talking about GDC and PAX East. Like, here's a dozen plus specific Switch games you can go play in your library once they're released. And, you know, it sounds silly to say out loud, but this is how gaming has been. You pay money up front.
Console gaming, at least.
Console gaming.
Because, I mean, there are, like, old school, like, you know, MMORPGs and stuff like that.
Well, no, I'm saying even those are still the same deal. You are paying for you are having a one-to-one exchange with an individual game. How you want to think about, like, if is it a prolonged game, is it a short game, whatever. You are doing a thing that's only a game. Yeah, there's like Xbox Live or like Battle.net and stuff. It's like a service across multiple games, but you're still deciding which of those games you are playing, which of those games you are buying, right?
Oh, yeah, all right.
But what's interesting is the other side of GDC that we didn't talk about last week or last episode 2 weeks ago is the delivery method of games. Because we talked about specific games, but we didn't talk about how they're brought to us. And a big thing at GDC was that the delivery method is changing. Google Stadia, Apple Arcade, these two big new gaming services from the two biggest tech companies in the world, they completely erase the idea of game ownership and replace it with the oh-so-hot model of services. And that, weirdly, is nothing like what we've ever seen in gaming before. And on a general level, I'm kind of curious, like, what do you make of this? Like, the idea of a la carte gaming, because that's where we're going as we hit our milestone here. Like, it's definitely a turning point. So what do you think? What's your take on it?
I don't know. It's weird because, I mean, it's something we haven't really had before. The closest thing we could compare it to is the streaming services we have now for shows and movies. But it's weird because games are not like shows and movies. It's not like I could binge, like, oh, I'm going to binge like all 13 Final Fantasies in one weekend. It's like, you're gonna, like,
by one weekend you mean 5 years maybe.
Yeah, like it's going to take a while. And the older you get, like, the more you, I guess, realize like time is a very, I don't know, it's a valuable commodity. Yeah. And I don't know, it's easy to do, I guess it's easier to do TV shows. I'm not saying it's easy either, because there's also so many streaming services, so many different ones, like between HBO Now and Crunchyroll and Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff. I don't know. I hate having everything spread out. Which is like one of the downsides of having like video games going in this direction. Yeah. But just wait. All those streaming services will be bundled together and they'll call it cable. But then at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm not too big of a fan of it because especially for games, less so with TV shows, because you could do other stuff while watching a show, or if you're not that invested, or if you're just kind of invested, or if it's a comedy. I tend to do that with comedies. But with games, you typically want to take your time with them, whatever that ends up meaning. Like, I mean, if you play a game for speed running, taking your time with it means you're just playing it for years and years and years, like just not anything else. Like, I don't know. It's interesting, right? I like having my games. I like having some games digitally, but not as part of a streaming service. Yeah, it's because the digital thing's an interesting point, because like every time we discuss this idea of gaming, I could say maybe bite-sized games. I don't know, like the only like streaming service, I don't know. It would almost have to go on a company by company basis, or even a genre basis, because it's like I could maybe do like a visual novel game streaming service, like games like Ace Attorney. It's almost like back at television shows. Yeah, so which is why you feel more comfortable or like Telltale or stuff like that, because narrative driven. Yeah, because those kind of games, like they go at a set pace. Like the pace is literally set by the game most of the time, and all the other games, like you're probably gonna just want to play longer. You're gonna feel like a lot of games in the service are just gonna go to waste. The only other time it could ever work, I feel, and this is excluding like new games. Yeah. It's just like for retro consoles or stuff like that. Like the NES online stuff on Switch. Like those are the only ones where I would be like okay with it, because it's like, all right, cool, I played most of these, maybe hit a few that I never got to, but yeah, that's... You raised an interesting point about narrative-driven games possibly working on streaming service, because that is happening. It's coming from the other direction. Like stuff like Black Mirror Bandersnatch. That is a game. Yeah. It has it's a full-motion video game like from Night Trap back in the day or something. It's that sort of game, but it is a game. And they're doing it again with Bear Grylls now. I think it's Bear Grylls. They're doing a show where you pick how he survives. He can never die. Spoiler. It's actually not really going to make a difference. But, like, it's fine that the TV streaming services are coming more towards games than games are going towards TV. Yeah. Yeah. But you also made a point that I thought was kind of interesting, where you're saying it doesn't matter if it's digital or physical. You just owning it. And I think that's a very interesting point, because, like, every time we discuss the idea of gaming
in the cloud or game streaming or something like that. It first came up on the show with Resident Evil 7 coming to Switch in Japan. More recently, it's with the Game Pass rumors of Xbox Game Pass coming to Switch. My sticking point has always been I don't like the idea of a game being hosted somewhere else with you having zero control over ownership. I'm a big proponent of having an actual game library. I mean, you, Angel, better than anyone, know my obsession with having physical copies over digital. But even if we're talking digital, like you were saying, you still have the game. As long as your hardware is working, you have a way to play it. Be it tomorrow, be it 10 years from now, you can still play it. And that means you can share it with other people. You can preserve it however you want. You can do whatever you want. You can give it to someone and they can have it forever. It's your game. You do with it what you want on your terms. And my concerns with subscription services is, as of right now, even if a game subscription service comes along, meaning, yeah, you still have ways to physically own a game, digitally own a game, or you can get a subscription, what happens when they grow so massive that they fully replace the idea of game ownership? In the same way that streaming music is starting to eclipse music purchases to the point that Best Buy no longer sells music. Or that, Netflix can drop a movie or a show and you have no way of actually owning it. You only can stream it on Netflix. Sometimes they'll release Blu-rays years later, but sometimes they won't. And then how do you ever have that piece of content for yourself? Have it. And I have kind of a weird example, but it's been an annoying issue for me already with things like Kanye because I have every physical Kanye album up until The Life of Pablo, which came out, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't have Life of Pablo because he just never made a physical version of Life of Pablo. So I have this oddly incomplete collection of all his CDs up till Pablo. And in 10 years, if there's some clearance issue with one of the songs or whatever, it's gone. I will never hear that song legally again. That's weird. With games, I can still buy how I want, what I want, when I want. But if streaming does take off, can I have a Life of Pablo situation with a game? Could there be a game that, let's say Tetris 99, and then the Tetris company pulls the rights from Nintendo? They have jumped those rights to every publisher. Ubisoft had, Sega had, Nintendo had. Hypothetically, if they're we don't want you to have the rights to Tetris 99, to Tetris anymore, does that mean Tetris 99 disappears from the service? Because that's what happens with movies. That's what Disney Plus is doing. They're pulling all the stuff off the other service.
Literally
Simpsons.
Netflix every month.
Yeah,
all the stuff leaves,
yeah, exactly. And it's is that gaming? Is that what happens? I feel like there's a medium where everyone.
I guess I'm now finishing Rugrats.
Right.
I mean, that's literally what happened. But
yeah, but it's every medium people have their thing where they're I like having some sort of ownership to it. For me, it's games. For you, I feel like it's movies more. I don't care about owning a movie. I don't care about seeing a movie more than once. But I imagine all the stuff with Disney Plus and them doing away with the vault and whatnot kind of clashes with your collecting of the animated movies.
Yeah, because I love having a digital library of movies, but only if I still have a physical copy of the movie, which is nice because I would say 100% of movies come with a digital code.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does. Gaming, I can see why they don't do that.
Right.
But at least with movies, it's standard practice. I still have my physical copy I could see whenever, and for convenience, I have my digital one so I could conveniently watch it or whatever.
For now.
But even then, I still have my physical one.
For now. What happens when they start not releasing physical copies of their newer anime? I mean, you only collect the classic stuff pretty much. Or no, you collect the new stuff too. What if they go, hey, Disney Plus is really taking off, which, by the way, $7 a month is going to take off. That's an insane price for the value. But it's really taking off. We don't need to release, we're talking 5 years down the line, we don't need to release Guardians of the Galaxy 6 directed by James Gunn's son. We don't need to do that because people just watch it on Disney Plus. And then just never release it. What happens then if it's an anime movie? What are you going to do? Everyone's going to have at some level, I feel this concern. I
mean, it depends. I guess it'd be I guess I'm just not getting Disney movies then.
Yeah, but it's just that sucks.
I mean,
right?
You accept it. You move on.
I guess I don't. I rant about it every 2 weeks on the podcast for multiple hours, but
it's a shame. But I mean, there's always something else.
Is this so adult response? You're well, if they're not going to support my hobby, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, obviously, there's no point saying you're bickering about it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, the
knee-jerk
reaction would be to be that sucks. I love my Pixar, I love my blah blah blah. Yeah. But at the same time, there are so many I mean, the more and more I get involved with animation, the more and more I learn how there's so many other great studios and great things that I just never get around to. That I've never seen their libraries, whether they be foreign or other parts of the U.S. And maybe by not having Disney around in my rotation, or at least any of the future stuff, I can finally get to, you know, expand that repertoire a little. Kind of like how I did with some indie stuff, or even like expanding my genres, like getting more into horror stuff.
Right.
It's like there's all these things like I never knew I really, really loved. That I'm like, wow, I could have been a huge horror buff had I given this a chance many years earlier, but I didn't because I had Disney tunnel vision.
Right.
So
yes, you did.
So it could be a good thing.
But okay, so you actually raised a really good point, I think, about the idea that there is so much content and some content cannibalizes.
It's almost too much content. It's literally...
Yeah, and some content will cannibalize other content. And that's, I mean, arguably that's the biggest selling point of a subscription service, right? Like you can get all that at your fingertips, all the games in this case. And you could jump into a game and at any time and play it no matter how big or small its release is and yada yada. But like, kind of to your point, like, well, one thing cannibalizes another. With that much accessibility, like, how do games rise to the top? Because none of these services are out yet, right? But let's say they take off. Let's say they blow up. Unlike, well, even like movies, like, will there be ways down the line?
Would it ever replace the theater?
Huh?
Would it ever replace the theater?
I mean, hypothetically, movie theaters are struggling. That's why they're all doing this.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, ticket sales are, like, going down.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of down the road where, like, maybe in 10 years, like, we might not see that many. It might be, like, a very exclusive thing.
Yeah.
Where it's only, like, it's literally just a premiere. Kind of like how they do for Netflix.
Yeah, and what happens when that happens with games? Because it's not like you, like, have a communal place. I mean,
what's the equivalent for games?
I don't like the idea of, like, you can download the game. What if it's like, no, the only way you get the game is through a service?
Oh, I see.
Like, what happens? Because then you're stuck. And then the problem
the only people that get to download it are the people that are, like, they get the review copies, I guess.
Yeah, and here's, or, like, you know, download it for offline play when you're on an airplane or whatever. And here's the problem with that.
Instead of, you know, like, go buy it in stores this week. It's like, go play when it's available for you.
GameStop announced they are down some crazy, like, $600 million or something. Now, part of that's due to a financial asset thing they're going through, but part of it's their sales are down. They're turning into a toy store because no one's buying physical games anymore. Like GameStop, I tweeted this the other week.
They're literally fusing with ThinkGeek.
Yeah, basically. And GameStop, I made a joke the other week, but we're going to get to the point. You know how there's all those articles about, like, the last blockbuster in the world? We're going to get to that point with GameStop in, like, 10 years.
Well, no, I mean, when I was in San Francisco, I went to a GameStop where the first floor was the GameStop, and it was a pretty small GameStop. But then you go downstairs, and it's, like, twice the size, and it's just a ThinkGeek. It's
crazy. Yeah, like, that's the way things are moving. I mean, Sony...
a weird obsession with Conan merchandise. But
I don't understand the Conan thing. As a Conan O'Brien fan, I love it. I don't at all understand it. Like, why is he in GameStop? Clueless gamer, I guess. But the point I was going to make is, besides that, like, stores are going away. I mean, PlayStation just pulled... You can no longer... You know how with, like, the Switch, you can go buy a digital card that gives you a code to download specific games? You can still, like, shop for games at physical stores, but it's just a download code for that game. Yeah. You can't do that with PlayStation anymore. They pulled it from all the stores. The only thing you can buy for PlayStation Network now is a flat, like, gift card. That's it. Well, so, like, it's already happening.
They also pulled a few months ago free PS3 games from PlayStation Plus. Not as big of a deal, but, you know.
And that goes to the point of, like, you don't own anything. So what if that was your only way to get to those games? And they're gone.
Yeah.
But the problem is, let's say, like, again, kind of going back to your whole idea of there's too much content. Let's say the streaming service is the only way to get to this stuff, right? Like, how do games rise to the top at that point? With that much accessibility, with all the games in one place, how do they bubble up, so to speak? Because, like, we're already seeing problems with that. Like, none of the services are out, but I feel like at the Apple Arcade announcement, stuff already got buried. Did you know? I mean, you know because you follow it, but WayForward announced in the Apple sizzle reel that they're making Shantae 5, which on its own, especially in the Nintendo world, is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty cool game. It's a popular franchise. But in the midst of reveals of a game by, like, the Final Fantasy creator, you know, they got Sakaguchi to make a game for Apple Arcade, and then they announced that Will Wright is making a game exclusively for Apple Arcade. He's the Sims and SimCity and all that, and Spore of all things. Thank you. You're welcome. And then on top of that, they had, like, all these surprise sequels, like Beneath a Steel Sky, which is a huge cult thing. That's getting a sequel, which also separately is coming to Switch. But, you know, between all that, there's just like, oh, hey, there's a Shantae game. Isn't that cool? But no one really noticed. Like, you know it was buried when WayForward later that day from both their official account and some of their developers' individual accounts had to be like, hey, we announced a new Shantae earlier. Like, did you see it? Like, reminder, we did this.
That's how I found out.
Exactly. That's the problem. And, like, just imagine how much worse of a situation that will be when all these massive blockbuster games are on the same service alongside these tiny indie projects. Like, discoverability on something like this is going to matter probably more than ever. Oof. But subscription services take away a huge differentiator, which is like how you go about finding games by price. Because right now, you know, if you have $20, you're like, oh, I'm going to look for games that are like 20 or less. That's a lot of indie games, so I'll be browsing that. If you have $60, maybe a lot of people will steer more towards big blockbusters.
Yeah, it does kind of put them on the same unfortunate playing field. No, a better wording for it would be it put them on the same battleground.
They're in the same bucket.
Yeah.
Or battleground. Ooh, it's a battle royale between the non-battle royales and the battle royales.
Yeah, because like, I mean, nowadays, I mean, at least right now, to your point, you could say like, all right, like this is a shorter game. It's like an indie game, so it does feel like a $10 game. Like when you buy it and you play it, you don't really feel gypped sometimes based on the price.
Yeah.
But on the streaming service, I guess they're going to have to sort it by length.
I don't really know.
But then it's also like some games can arguably be like $60 games that are only like 8 to 10 hours long.
So you can't really sort by
length. If they're really, really good.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It's almost like you have to sort by production value, but that like belittles the games that are cheaper. Because, yeah, a lot of indies we talked about before, you know, they have less limited production
and then how
budgets, so.
Yeah, and then there's games like The End Is Night, who, I mean, debatably has less production values than, let's say, I don't know, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
But debatably probably has as much gameplay as that game if you factor in how much time you're going to be playing it because of how difficult it is.
Right. So like how you even measure that. That's what's weird.
So like at that point, I guess like...
And like think about it.
Give me games in Unreal that use Unreal.
Yeah, like...
Give me games that
use Unity. Yeah. I need games that use the Ubi Art engine, which would be like 5. But it's just... Where's Frostbite? Where's my Frostbite? Where are all the broken Frostbite games?
I guess you could have the big name developers, but then you go like, give me indie, and then it's just literally everything. Like thousands and thousands of games.
And like honestly, even just think about like if you're a casual gamer or a 12-year-old kid and you're going into your game subscription service, and you know, what are the odds you're gonna seek out Shantae and play that on the same monthly subscription that gives you Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, even like a Crash Bandicoot remake? Like those are going to draw attention for a lot of people that aren't as like well versed or as deep into the gaming world. And like imagine if you aren't even as big as Way Forward. If your game's smaller than Shantae, you know, maybe it's a new IP and you're a new studio. It's going to be really hard to break through. And I honestly think the issue of like this idea of discoverability and how it's going to work in a streaming service is probably the biggest differentiator between what we're seeing with Apple Arcade and what we're seeing with Google's Stadia. And this actually kind of makes it a good opportunity to talk a little bit about Stadia Arcadia. I do like that it's called Stadia. A lot of people thought the name was dumb, but that's a single stadium, or that's plural for stadium or something. It's related to the word stadium, and the idea is it hooks into YouTube, so a lot of people are watching you, so it's like you're in an arena. Like, I get it. It's kind of a cool name. But we never really had a chance to talk about like the actual new announcements of these services, because they aren't Nintendo, but they will directly influence what happens to Nintendo in the long term. So this is probably a good opportunity to kind of dive into the pros and cons of each.
How will Nintendo react 10 years from now when they finally get around to it and doing it in their own really weird and obnoxious way?
Where if you want to use the service, you first have to log in from your phone, and then you have to high five a virtual Mario in your hologram headset, and
people will love that.
And only then do they give you a cardboard that you build to access the streaming service.
People will say stuff like, I love this about Nintendo. They found a very quick way to like almost interact with Mario, something that a lot of companies are being very distant about.
But you know what they'll still complain about? Friend codes and lack of voice chat. Oh. Those are constant.
The friend codes have tripled in length.
The friend codes are now the length of pi.
They're barcodes.
It's however many digits you can fit into 3 point. You just keep going like pi and hope for the best. But no, we should.
Yeah, the serial number for the console, I guess, because I'm assuming they still have a console. It'll be your friend code.
Well, they won't have a console if it's streaming. You'll have to do the serial. You'll have to order a special dog tag from Nintendo that's sent to you, and on that dog tag will be an individual person number. Because, you know, we don't want to say it's a serial number for a person. It's a personal identification. It's a PIN. It's a personal identification.
It'll be like 20 or 30 years before Nintendo doesn't have a console and just has a
you're totally right. Although they have said they're open to the idea. I can't remember where, but in some Japanese newspaper a couple months ago, they were saying, you know, maybe we're in a post-console future. Some people interpret that to mean they're going to jump to other consoles, but it means they're looking beyond the idea of a console. So, who knows? But in the meantime, we have Stadia, we have Apple Arcade.
They perfected Google Glasses or Google Contacts.
Could you imagine if somehow Nintendo came up with the actual AR eyewear that we all use?
Mm-hmm. Have Samus's interface UI when you're walking around, or Legend of Zelda UI.
Yeah, it's like driving down the street. Why not have some banana peels? No. But Stadia in the meantime is probably the most ambitious we're going to see from these streaming services before Nintendo goes full AR. And I think it's simply because it's on the cloud. Like, that alone opens up all sorts of, at least to me, interesting approaches to discoverability. Really centered around, like, the fact that you can launch right into a game without needing to install it or download it or anything. Like, Google was showing off these features, like being able to queue up to play your favorite streamer at the click of a button. You know, you're on their channel, you press a button, you're playing them in the next match if there's not a lot of people watching, or you're waiting to play. Or, you know, if you're watching a trailer, you can launch into that specific segment of the game from the trailer. You press a button, 5 seconds later, there you are. And it's interesting because it basically offloads a lot of the idea of discoverability to the general internet. Like, kind of the same way you interact with people now, forums, social media, whatever. Now it's just a click away from not just, like, learning about the game, but immediately playing the game. Which, you know, for big games, that's not that big of a deal. But if someone's, like, on Twitter, like, hey, look at this cool game I discovered, this little indie game, and you click the link and it's a YouTube trailer, and you're like, this is cool looking. You press it, you're in. That is pretty cool. Like, that's a cool way to get people to try out new games. And technology-wise, like, Stadia actually has a lot of neat stuff in it. Like, I like the idea of split screen in a game where each split of the screen is a separate Stadia server, so you can actually do totally different things with fully optimized experiences and not have to, like, worry about, well, can the console handle it? Like, that's kind of nice.
That's right.
Yeah, or how about, like, the fact that since everything runs server-side, it removes a lot of cheating and hacking potential. Obviously, you can do stuff like weird macros, or you can have, you know, like a pixel-based aimbot or something. But a lot of what, like, the Splatoon players have to deal with online is just null. Is no longer a thing. So that's kind of cool. There's even, like, now I think about it, like, smaller stuff, like the fact that you can, if you want to stream your game and you're using Stadia, you can send the stream directly to YouTube. Like, you don't have to worry about the stream cannibalizing your own connection. You don't have to be doing down and up like we tried when we did our Smash stream last November, and it really bogged down online play. Like, that's a non-issue because, like, Nintendo, they don't have any way to stream, so you're just kind of using the same device as your hub, but Google can be like, hey, it's on our server, we'll just fork the connection, it's fine. It's like, there is cool stuff that Stadia does, don't get me wrong. The problem, though, is that I think the exact same thing that makes all these ideas possible is also the biggest downfall, which is the cloud. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to latency. And on the surface, everything about Stadia sounds great. You know, it reduces friction it takes to get into a game. That's a good way to increase the number of players overall for little games, big games, whatever. But if the game stutters whatsoever, it's over. People aren't going to do it. And I mean, I was watching Google's live stream of their conference for Stadia. That was stuttering. That had issues where it was rewinding itself 2 seconds every so often. That's just a video. Like, that doesn't give me much confidence about how, like, Stadia as a game service will do, you know? And Google just went on and on about, like, how good their infrastructure is, but that doesn't matter unless yours is good too, which they never really touched on. And what I thought was kind of funny is that, like, almost all the hands-on impressions that I read about the service from GDC, like Game Informer and all those sites, you could sum them up as, well, it's not unplayable, which is like,
well, there was one video
weird
I saw
bar.
where, like, you literally see the guy hammering away at the jump button, and, like, about 2 seconds later it jumps. But,
yeah,
I mean,
like those, like I saw that too. But like
Yeah.
Game Informer, them got private demos where the connection's a little more stable.
Yeah.
But the fact that the best they can muster is not unplayable is kind of like, that's a weird. It's a very low bar considering right now games are at their most playable. They are at peak playable because they're on dedicated consoles. So to just be like, well, I mean, it's serviceable. It's like, but we already have better than serviceable. Why would you downgrade to serviceable? It doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe if you're a casual gamer, I can see the logic. Like, getting a Stadia subscription, you know, you don't have to spend $100 on a new console. But then when you factor in whatever the cost is for the subscription, which Google didn't even announce, so who knows what it will be, you know, you factor that in. You factor in potentially buying one of the Stadia controllers, which has some cool things. Like, I like the idea that it connects directly via Wi-Fi to the server. So as you go device to device, you don't have to sync the controller, and it minimizes some latency because it's not routing to a separate device. It's just instant. Like, that's cool. But factor in, you know, the Stadia subscription, the controller price, any changes to your internet bill from the huge amount of data you're going to be now sending back and forth. Like, is it that much cheaper with all said and done? Probably not. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess to be fair
4K gaming, I guess, would be a lot.
Like, they're saying you'll be able to do it with 25 down, but will you? Will it be 4K? Will it be HDR? Will it be 60 frames? I don't know. And to be fair, Stadia and really cloud gaming in general, it is possible to overlook some of these things. Like, I feel like Game Pass is going to encounter the same issues, but because it means entirely new experiences for those who use the service, you know, like Xbox games on Switch, hypothetically, if that rumor comes true, like, it seems like people are willing to look past some of the downsides. The problem with Stadia is that if Google is going to spend an hour presenting the technology backbone of the service, which they did, and honestly they could have done a 5-minute pre-recorded video and achieved the exact same goal, probably had more information even, but if they're going to do this hour-long thing, of course the only response will be for everyone to focus on the pitfalls of the technology. There is nothing selling you on the service, really. It's just like, hey, here's what it can do if it works. And you can tell that, like, they have Phil Harrison and they have all these big-name game industry folks working behind the scenes, but, like, you can tell Google is still new to gaming. You can tell they don't get it, because maybe it's just me. I'm kind of curious what you think about this, actually, because you sort of followed it a little, right, when it was announced. But I found it incredibly weird that they launched an entirely new game platform, the world's first streaming game platform, without any games at all. They had 2 multi-platform releases.
I mean, it's gonna get Assassin's Creed.
But that was already... You could do that in your Chrome browser last October. So really they had one announcement, which was Doom Eternal, which is also coming to every other system. Like, that's not how you sell a platform. Like, they should have taken a cue from someone like Nintendo. You don't tell, you show. Like, look at when the DS and the Wii were revealed. All that then new...
I'm sure we're talking about the same Nintendo that showed off Metroid Prime 4.
What? But even then, they announced an exclusive big game. Like,
I know,
Google couldn't even do that. But, like, look at, like, what Nintendo did with, like, if we're talking about, like, fancy new technology, look at what Nintendo did with the Wii and DS when they first revealed those. Like, that was super weird technology. You never thought about how does that work with gaming. And they're like, well, here's some games that show you how it does. And that worked. And they showed off the potential by listing off all these big name developers and publishers making games for the platforms, which demonstrates excitement within the dev community. And to be fair, Google did that. They had a list of names on the screen, but Nintendo also, kind of to your Metroid Prime 4 point, they also showed it by announcing exclusives from those companies that demonstrate why, if you like games, you need to buy whatever system Nintendo is pitching. Google did not do that at all. They're just like, yeah, Sega, their name on the board. Oh, so is Konami. What are they doing? But check it out. The games you play over there, you can play over here. Isn't that kind of neat? It's just like, what does that achieve?
Sound like a dad.
Yeah, right? That's kind of, because they definitely came in kind of like hey, we get gaming. Like,
that's lit, isn't it?
Yeah, like, hello, fellow kids. No, but like, seriously, like, they had on the back of their controllers the Konami code, which is, like, on one hand, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I'm also like, that's the most, like, what do gamers like? Oh, you know the Konami code? They all know that. What if we stuck it on our controller? We get gamers. I mean, I think the best example is to, like, they sound like a dad, is, well, you saw it at GDC, didn't you? Their setup for Stadia, where it was, like, a display, and it was all... It's like, if you...
of gaming?
Yeah, except they called it, like, it's like the heading on it, or the thing on it was, like, you know, if you set your mind to it, you can do anything or something like that. And it was, like, the power...
Yes, you too can be a failure.
No, but yeah, that's the thing. Because they're like, oh, look at this. And it was, like, the Power Glove, and what else was it? Like E.T. and like, and and the Dreamcast, yeah. And I don't know if it was supposed to be tongue in cheek or what, but like it definitely gave off a "hello, fellow kids" like vibe as well, and it was very weird. And
I mean, the message to me was like, guess what? Like, video games' biggest disappointment will be
Stadia. But you know what I actually find most telling is Google, like, didn't just act like a dad that was trying to be cool and didn't just not announce games. They instead were focusing on discussing not just like the technology behind it, but they spent a ton of time walking through how vertically integrated this entire service will be for Google. Like how their servers and YouTube and Google Assistant and
Google
the player
Docs. It's
and
incorporated.
yeah, exactly. And like the developer and the streamer, they all exist in this beautiful Google Harmony, where Google controls every facet of the experience. You play the game on their server.
Want to listen to your tunes? Google Play is built right in.
Exactly, yeah. You can play any song from millions to choose from with Google Play Music. But no, like seriously, think about it. You play the game on their server. You learn about the games through their video service. You chat and stream with other players that use the platform on their video service. You as a developer, you're going to want to promote your game on their video service because that's where the instant play button will be. Everything about Stadia is about Google's like network of things. Like to bring it back to the initial point about like Stadia's unique approach to discoverability that I was trying to make, because it's all Google, everything you're doing is Google. What they're able to do is essentially offload the work of game curation to YouTubers. And they, at the same time, they're still able to keep their whole ecosystem locked down from top to bottom. Because like right now, you find out about a lot of games through like Twitch, right? Like, oh, Apex Legends is really popular because there it is on Twitch, rising up the charts. Or there's this weird little game never heard of that's blowing up on Twitch. What's this Fortnite? Isn't that a Shakespearean word? Oh, it's a popular game. Okay. Like, that's how you find that stuff out. Google's saying, sure, you can do that, but you're doing it within our ecosystem. And from Google's perspective, to be fair to Google, it's actually kind of genius. Like, think about it. Your customers are no longer just the players of the game. They're also the developers of the game. You're making money off every monthly subscription, and you're deciding how much money to give each developer. Like, all you need to do is promise to keep the lights on for them. That's minimal overhead for you as the owner of a bajillion servers around the world. And, like, in Google's case, not only that, but you're also making money from every ad that runs before a developer's trailer on YouTube, before every streamer's live stream. The structure of Stadia is such that you can essentially triple dip on every single piece of content and monetize it 3 different ways and make a ton of money. And if you think about Stadia that way, it's like, well, no wonder Google's doing this. And no wonder they didn't focus on the games. Because for them, as a technology company and a company that always gets into the nitty-gritty, yeah, for them it's about like, we're going to own the experience from start to finish. And that's crazy. Like, that's so different from how gaming has been. It's really wild. And I think that whole idea of like a fully integrated vertical platform to get real businessy, I think that's why Apple's probably jumping in with Apple Arcade too. Like, they can say it's because they want to give indies a fighting chance against the big bad free-to-play monster that they themselves created. But let's be real here. This is just another opportunity to boost revenue for Apple. Like, I'm not faulting Apple for doing this. As a company, obviously, they're in it to make money. But it's sort of like Google. They are having the players be the customer that pay them monthly, and the developers be the customer by making them games that they then monetize themselves instead of just passing it to the player. It's interesting. And like, based on their current App Store curation, I think they'll do a decent job of elevating some like lesser known games into the spotlight. They also have a major advantage over Stadia in that you don't need to be connected to the internet to play any of the games. You can download them for offline play. Like, I would say
your computer, I guess.
It's your iPad, iPhone, or Apple TV, and your Mac. Yeah. But the bone I have to pick with Apple Arcade. Well, first of all, before we go too deep into Apple Arcade, do you have any thoughts about Stadia? Like, one way or another, beyond my little ramble about how Google's secretly this crazy smart, like, capitalist behemoth?
Potentially scary, but overall, it's like an easy path for me as far as like, am I gonna jump into it?
Yeah,
do I have any interest in getting it? It's like, no, don't really feel any reason to get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, because they have nothing to entice you.
Because I mean,
it's weird.
As much as everything they have going for them, like you said, like, they don't really need to announce any games.
Yeah.
We still need games to get us over there. So,
and that's honestly its biggest that's its biggest downfall, is if they don't have games that convince people to get on the service.
Yeah, it's like
none of this matters if they don't have games that will get people.
We're really good where we are right now.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like, I got my Resident Evils, I got my Marios, my Smash, my God of Wars. Like, it
wouldn't be a 200th episode without you figuring out a way to sneak in Resident Evil and God of War and Smash Bros. And you did it all in one sentence. I am impressed.
But yeah, like, I mean, why move?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. But and the nice thing about like Apple Arcade is it's not really those sorts of games. It's like the mobile games, and those are a bit different. But
yeah, and most of the stuff announced for Apple Arcade, at least some of the stuff, it's like also available on Switch.
Yeah, it's kind of Switch too. But I do have a major bone to pick with Apple Arcade.
And Disney Plus is coming to Switch.
What is?
I said even Disney Plus, like, everything's coming to Switch.
So Internet, you fake news. I never thought I'd get to say this. You are fake news. You Angel, are fake news. Disney Plus is not coming to Switch. I was watching the live stream. I saw the slide, and I saw the internet misinterpret it. Disney Plus is coming to game consoles. Cue slide of consoles they would like to see it on. It is confirmed, and they have a deal already in place for PS4 and Roku TV. That is it. They put up what they would like to achieve, including Chromecast and everything, but they never named it by name. They just said game consoles and streaming boxes and dongles. But they didn't call them dongles, because dongles is a funny word. But they basically said the only two we've actually secured thus far are PS4 and Roku. Now, will it come to Switch? Probably. I can't see Nintendo being like, Disney? No, thank you.
I mean, Hulu's already
on it. But yeah, Hulu's there, YouTube's there. I'm sure it will come there. The fact that Disney said, hey, we're going to bring our thing, we want to bring our thing to this platform that we're not going to say by name, but is pictured on our slide, is already way more than what Netflix did with their service for the last 2 years on Switch, which is non-existent. But yeah, Disney did not actually confirm it. They just said they are hoping to achieve it. And a lot of the internet got that wrong.
Fine, I rephrase it. It's more than likely coming to Switch.
Yeah. No, I wasn't trying to, like, call you out. It's just, like, so much of the internet got wrong that I just felt like, since I actually watched it, I was like, let me set the record straight. Because, yeah, I saw Nintendo Deals or one of those Twitter accounts immediately posting. I'm like, it's not quite right, but okay. Not to call them out either. Like, you know, people, it's a picture of a Switch on a Disney slide. Of course, that's how it's going to be interpreted. That was Disney's fault for not specifying. But,
anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I talking about? Apple Arcade. Yeah, I think there is one major bone I have to pick with Apple Arcade. I think it highlights probably another major problem with the a la carte gaming service, and that in general, like the concept, and that's how are developers going to be paid. Now, to be clear, what I'm about to say is not 100% confirmed. For all we know, Stadia will take a similar approach too, so it may not just be Apple's. I'm not saying it's Apple's fault per se, but according to Bloomberg, Apple plans to pay out developers based on the amount of time people play their games. Let me say that again because it's so insane. Developers who are part of the Apple Arcade program will get money not for their games being included in the service, but based on how many people play the game and for how long those people actively engage with the game. That's insane.
That's not good. That's like...
That sucks.
Yeah, that's the same... That's literally what killed animation for a while on YouTube. Because it went from views, which was good for animation because, you know, you put a lot of work into something and a lot of people want to watch it. Mm-hmm. Then it went to retention time, which is like retention time and quantity. And then it's like, well, it takes like about a month to do like a 3-minute animation versus someone that's just doing like a 20-minute long Let's Play that could post one out every single day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the algorithm screws you. That's it.
And here's where I think it's going to happen with the gaming side. It's going to be kind of like a similar scenario, but
some smaller studios are just going to...
They're just going to disappear. Yeah. And not only will studios disappear, entire genres of games will disappear. Like, think about it. It's like they're going to... Like, it's going to force homogeneity within the Apple service in general, or any service that does that.
Oh, God. We're going to get so many games with so much padding.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but, like... Yeah, exactly.
RPGs are going to do amazing.
Anything with a grind is going to do great. Anything that's multiplayer-oriented is going to do great. Narrative-driven games are good.
JRPGs, geez. Like 40 hours is like the minimum usually to beat the game.
Yeah, exactly. But like narrative games, which you're saying are the one thing you think makes sense on a platform like this, they're going to go out the window. Shorter single-player fare, that's going to go out the window.
Probably multiplayer stuff, because that stuff usually gets you to like thousands of hours.
It's basically what we see on free-to-play right now is going to be the thing that thrives most in this, because they can use the exact same, like, psychology hooks, the same addiction hooks, for lack of a better term. I mean, like, this is where the Prince Harry thing comes in that we teased, that you newscaster teased at the top. Like, just the other day, I find that this happened because just the other day, Prince Harry over in the UK was saying that Fortnite should be banned because it creates an addiction. And he's complaining it's irresponsible parents and they shouldn't let their kids play it and da-da-da-da-da. And obviously that is a very extreme and very hot take that's very wrong. I don't think either of us would agree with that. Like, you should ban the game. But his underlying point is that games...
Is that why a newspaper came up the other day? Well, a picture of an old newspaper that says, "What is radio doing to your children?"
Probably. That's probably what it's a reference to. But I will admit, like, the underlying point he's trying to make, that games take advantage of known, like, addiction triggers, for lack of a better way to put it, that's true. Like, look at free-to-play games. They literally will go hire psychologists to figure out how they can adapt casino-level addiction techniques into their games.
Yeah, aren't loot boxes banned in some
places?
Loot
boxes are banned in Belgium completely.
Yeah,
like, it's a real thing, and he's saying an actual legit point. He just is saying it in the worst possible way. But the problem is, like, what's stopping a developer from doing that in the service? Granted, you're not necessarily losing as much money as an individual player, but all the same, like, dumb little psychology tricks are being used. They're still trying to hook you on their game and not just present a fun experience, you know? So it's still... It just seems like it's such a bad idea to make it based on playtime. And I'll admit, like, I'm being a little dramatic here. Like, even if this is honestly something that happens, it's not like every game in free-to-play land is bad. Like, the paradigm of a free-to-play game doesn't mean it's inherently bad. I mean, obviously, my favorite mobile game, Pokemon Go, that's been free-to-play since day one. It just, I saw the other day, hit over 1 billion downloads worldwide and 2.5 billion in revenue, and that doesn't use any of those psychology tricks, really. Like, it offers a unique experience, it does it well. There will be games like that on streaming services, I'm sure. And, like, likewise, I mean, you've been playing Brawl Stars a lot. Has that been sucking your money away? Like,
none of it.
Right. So, like, how does Brawl Stars even work? What do you even do? I don't even know. I just know it's really big right now, and you've been hooked on it for weeks.
Yeah, I got into it because a friend of mine got me into it. That's usually how it starts.
It sounds like you're describing cocaine, but please continue.
I don't know. It's just very addicting and fun how simple the concept is. I mean, it's pretty much like any fighting game, like, or any, it's you could think of it as it's an arena battle game. I guess you could call it that. And
I follow.
I guess we'll say like gem battles, like the core game. That's like the game you'll probably spend the most time playing. And essentially, each team is tasked to hold at most 10 gems at once before. Well, I'm like butchering it. All right. So in the center of the stage,
you've only done these descriptions like 199 times.
I know, yeah.
200. I know it's tricky.
Well, I've never really played a game like with this kind of like setup, so it's kind of weird. Yeah. But essentially, there's like a little chute in the middle that spewts out a gem like every 10 seconds, and
it's like a top-down sort of layout, right?
It's a top-down perspective, 3 versus 3, and after one team collects 10, a 15-second countdown begins, and the other team has to try to destroy the opposing team's players that are holding the gems so that they could.
Does Splatoon basically have a mode like this?
It's similar to Splatoon.
Yeah.
Well, no, not really. Actually.
I mean, it's not like 1-to-1, but like it reminds me of Splatoon, 3-on-3.
Well, Splatoon is not really 3-on-3. It's like 6-on. It's definitely. Oh, wait, is it? No, it's 4-on-4.
Oh, it's 4-on-4.
Yeah, that's close enough. But yeah, essentially, like when you grab a gem, you're carrying the gem. So when you get killed, you drop the gems on the floor. So if you're holding like 8 or 9, you definitely want to, play a little more defensively, because if they kill you, you're going to drop all those 8 gems, and you're suddenly going to put your team on the losing end, which could then trigger that countdown, and then they could just run away and, win the game.
I got better comparison. I need to redeem my Nintendo fandom here. It's not Splatoon, it's Mario Hoops 3-on-3, because it's literally 3-on-3.
Yeah, so that's one game.
That's how I saved myself. But, you just ignored that. Yeah, keep going.
So, and I guess like to add, and there's like different like strategies and layers to that type of game. It's like you want to have maybe the more offensive people, like maybe stay in the back, playing like keep away with the opposing team, and you want to have maybe like your bigger, heavier people that could take hits, like be the one that carries the gems. And that's where the characters come in. There's like a bunch of different characters, and some have a very wide range, like a fire, like to shoot something, but they don't do as much damage. And then some have a very narrow range, or narrow aim, where they shoot a lot further. And then they have different speeds, different abilities. After dealing enough damage, every single one has their own like special abilities. Some could heal teammates, some could travel really fast across the map, some could destroy obstacles. Like pretty much how the team is set up really changes how the game goes, and every match almost feels like completely different from each other. And on top of that, like every day that the maps change, like the layout of the maps. Like some maps might have many more bushes where you can hide in them and you're completely invisible, and then other days there might be almost no bushes and it might be completely open, so you might not want to pick certain characters on those maps versus others. And then there's also like a variation of soccer where that one's pretty much like Hoops 3-on-3. You're playing soccer.
Wait, my analogy that I was just trying to save face worked? It is like Hoops 3-on-3?
Well, one of the 5 modes.
Good enough.
Then there's another mode where it's kind of the same idea with bounty. You have to, every time you kill someone, you get like an extra point that hovers over you, and the more people you kill, the more points you have. But then if someone kills you, you give that team that many points. So
this sounds surprisingly diverse for a mobile game.
And then there's another mode, which is probably the most like in depth, where each team has like their own gigantic turret on opposite ends with their own health, and the goal is to destroy that turret. But if you get anywhere near that turret, you get blown up like instantly by the turret. So what you have to do is collect bolts in the middle of the stage and survive long enough holding the bolts, so the bolts get automatically added to your turret. And then after like an arbitrary amount of time, it's not arbitrary, it just feels like it, because you're just kind of in the middle of the fight.
Like, after this thing that isn't the thing I just said, but it feels like the thing I said is, but really isn't.
Yeah, because the game is chaotic. It's just 10 seconds before.
It's a brawl.
So whoever ends up collecting the most amount of bolts within that, like, let's say 30 seconds, a giant robot comes out from their turret and walks over to their turret, and that robot has like a ridiculous amount of health that could handle the bullets from the turret. So it's pretty much diverging all the bullets from the turret to the giant robot with that also has boxing gloves that's going to be destroying the turret, while you can also, attack that turret.
This is making me realize that if we were to try to describe, say, a Nintendo game to someone who's never experienced it before, it would sound just as absurd. Like, gaming's weird when you don't have, like, a visual touch point to work off of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like tower defense, but not really. It's like real-time tower defense, I guess if you want to call it.
That works.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I haven't spent any money on it. Every time you play games online, you get, like, points, and these points, every 100 points, you get a free little loot box. The loot boxes give you more points to power up your characters, and sometimes you can unlock a character that way. And you could, in theory, like, spend money to unlock a character, but you unlock them at a pretty brisk rate. Mm-hmm. And, like, every time you win a match, you get these trophies, which fill up another meter, and there's, like, this, I guess, giant pathway where, like, every 50 trophies that you get, you unlock something. Whether it's another character, a giant loot box, more points, more currency, multipliers, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're pretty much always getting something. And it's kind of ridiculous just how, like, much, I don't know what the word for it is, but, I guess positive reinforcement you get from the game, just, like, almost for doing nothing. Like, the first time you boot up the game, and there's, like, a new mode available, you tap it, and then you get, like, 10 coins just for tapping it. So
they learned that from the casino psychologists.
Oh yeah, and I mean this is Supercell's like third game in other games from what I know. Like
Supercells are the guys behind
Clash of Clans, Clash Royale. And
Clash of Clans is interesting because they just launched a season pass like Fortnite for it, and they made $27 million profit already.
Yeah, like
which is crazy.
Like their games have been like crazy popular, and this one, admittedly, actually each one has been pretty different from the last, and this one. I don't know. I like the character designs. They're pretty well, like, all the characters are very simple, and every single character has a pun name, which is really great.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think they came up with the name Brawl Stars before the game, or the game before the name? Because I'm going to argue they came up with the name first, and then the reason it has so many different modes is like, well, all of these apply, and they took all the ideas. They're like, here's the name. Let's brainstorm. And they're like, they all work. Shove them all in there, and they just took everything off the whiteboard and poured it in a game.
I will say, it is almost kind of funny how, like, you have characters like Mortis, who's kind of like a vampire dude, and then you
have Rigor Mortis.
Yeah. And then you have a robot named Rico because all his bullets like ricochet off the walls. But then you have a character called a Crow, and he's like a crow.
That's definitely some sort of joke in their office. Like, what if one character is just that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty.
The one that took me a while was Shelly because she fires a shotgun. But at first I didn't really think too much. Shotgun shells. Shotgun shells. Yeah, or Colt, because I forgot that there was a
Colt 45.
Yeah, the Colt 45. I was just like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
cool. Just sounds cowboy-y, I guess.
Does he have a cowboy hat?
No, but he's dressed in everything else.
Fun fact: he has chaps. Fun fact about cowboys: they do. I think they used to shoot Colt 45s.
Well, yeah, the revolvers, but
yeah, which are Colt 45s.
Yeah. Yep. So
well,
so it's fun. It's free, and I don't know, and it's definitely it's one of those games that's a lot better when you play with like friends, and usually
only your friends.
Huh?
The way you say it's the way you were. Sorry,
when you play with friends.
No, because you're like the game's a lot better when you play with my friends.
I didn't say mine.
You did. I think. Oh, I wish you did. Could we roll back the tape?
No, I just paused.
I heard mine, and I was like, I will only play with your friends.
No, it's like when you play with friends. Yeah. I mean, I play with like my brother and my other friend.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely really, really fun. It gets really, really intense. So
I really wish you said my friends, because that would be great. For like, hey everyone, this game's only good if you play with my social circle. Otherwise, it's trash.
And I guess like other good addicting games, like the matches range from like 2 to 3 minutes, maybe like 3 minutes at like on the longer side.
Right.
And unlike Hearthstone, which is one of my favorite free to play games, like some games, depending on the matchups, could almost last 20 minutes sometimes. So that's not like a game you kind of just like play on the bus, because you might be like, oh man, I'm already here and I'm still in mid game, but I have to keep looking at my phone. Like there's a game that like I literally got like 2 matches in when Jason said, oh, I'm gonna go to the restroom real fast, and then by the time he came back I was already done.
I was only gone for 45 seconds. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, like the game is, I mean, you have a good team and they just go by really fast, and
yeah. I spent more time walking to and from. That's how quick it was. Your game. What was I gonna say? Yeah, it raises an interesting point though, because all the like Brawl Stars, Clash of Clans being a game, like how are the games as services go work inside services? How you have a subscription service with a game as service in the service? How you serviceception it? What's the service inception levels here?
I guess that's the way that...
does it go?
I guess that would be the only way that the developers could circumvent those... Like,
but that means every game now has to have
extra money. Yeah,
now they have to have those hooks.
Like every game is gonna have like oh, here's like some aesthetic stuff, pretty much like Overwatch.
Yeah.
Like it's like Overwatch or any other game where like
how Clash of Clans now is a season pass.
Yeah, the cosmetics don't affect the gameplay. It's just like give us some extra money because we get paid pretty like crappily. So.
And I guess that kind of goes back to my main concern about like, so either
people laughed about horse armor back in the day.
Yeah, and here we are. But like. Let's say Apple goes all in on the payment model of paying by playtime. Others are going to follow suit. Stadia may follow suit. And then if you're basically a developer choosing between either I do that or I do a game and service for the rest of my life and, make Brawl Stars, what if like every streaming service hops on that bandwagon? Well, what if every developer hops on one of these two bandwagons? What if you're either being paid by the hours people play, or you have to do a game of service where you make them continue to play for the rest of their lives and just keep giving you money? Like, either way, you're stuck in the same loops, kind of. It just, I don't know, it just means less variety in gaming overall, I feel like, and that's kind of a bummer. Like, I'd much rather all these guys were more forward-thinking here and do what Netflix does, because, like, Netflix, they pay for content up front. They're not like, well, you watch this movie for 10 minutes, so we will give a tenth of the money or whatever to the people that made the movie. Like, they don't do that because that would be crazy. And I'm saying, like, I don't know, it just seems like it's gonna be crazy for games too. So I really hope that report was not entirely accurate and that Apple, or maybe they're getting feedback from developers and don't do it. Whatever the reason, I hope they don't do that, and I hope others don't follow suit, because I don't want services to rule the day by all doing the exact same thing, which is like, how do we keep you playing longer, whether it's for money or for minutes? Like, how do we keep you hooked and do all those psychology tricks and whatnot? Like, that would suck.
That would suck.
But now that we've talked a whole bunch about that, about Apple Arcade and Stadia, and the question kind of becomes like, what does this mean for Nintendo? And I don't mean our little like, oh, well, they're going to have AR and, in 10 years we'll be high-fiving a hologram Mario. I mean, like, what does this mean for Nintendo now in the foreseeable future, because they're always late with things. So modern-day Nintendo. And one aspect that's particularly interesting about Google and Apple with their respective services is they each played up pretty significantly the idea that they work across all sorts of devices and screen sizes. You can start playing in one place, like your Apple TV for arcade, for example, and then you can jump to your iPhone and the save file will pick up where you left off. Or more impressively with Stadia, you can seamlessly jump between devices, like instantly. When you switch, it switches. And that wasn't meant to be a pun, but it might as well be, because what I'm describing here, both of these services are, this is the hook of the Switch. This is the Switch's like thesis statement, if you will. Games are at home, they're on the go, you can switch seamlessly between them with different play options. That's the pitch of Switch. And now there are two different behemoths of technology being like, well, you could do it with ours too, or ours, and you don't even need to buy a new device. You can use your phone, you can use your laptop, you can use your TV. Like, it's just kind of crazy, and that fact that they're really gunning after the Switch's main thing was not lost on investors. Like, following the Stadia announcement, Nintendo shares were down something like 3.21%, which from an investor's perspective, I get why. Like, if you're a more casual player and you look at Switch, you're looking at spending $300 for a system plus $20 for a monthly fee for Switch Online. And on the surface, it does sound much better.
$20 for a monthly fee.
Or I mean, $20 a year.
Whoa,
sorry, I
man.
misspoke. $20 a year.
Hold your horses.
Yeah, but it does, like, on the surface, regardless of his month or year, being like, oh, I'm paying $320 to get this Switch with this online play for a year. On the surface, it sounds much better to just pay for Apple Arcade or Stadia, because it's going to be less upfront. And I can see why people would be like, well, maybe Switch has trouble. But there is another side to the Switch's success. And this is one that Stadia and Apple Arcade will never be able to counter. And that is the first-party lineup. You're never going to be playing Pokemon or Mario or Smash or Mario Kart on these services. Like, Nintendo was noticeably not on the wall of names for Apple Arcade. And I think those IPs are, like, possibly more of a driving force for Switch than investors are giving it credit for. It's certainly, in a way, a bigger push for Switch than if they than the like actual switching of Switch. I feel like it's a bigger bigger push is the franchises than it is if they were just like, here's a system that can do two things at once. They go hand in hand, but the one hand is bigger, I would say. And to that point, the February MPD chart. NPD chart. That came out a few weeks back. We didn't really get a chance to discuss the last episode. I'm not going to run through the whole thing. I was so disappointed. I know. Jason Sales Corner. We can't not do a Jason Sales Corner for episode 200, but we can do the bare minimum because it's only in relation to Switch's IPs.
The bare minimum? I'll have to...
You'll have to just make do. I'm sorry. I see the tears already rolling down.
So sad.
But yeah, the real takeaway from February NPD is look at how Switch is doing. Number one console on the chart yet again. Leak numbers peg it at about 363,000 sold here in the States. That is 100,000 more than what the PS4 did and 140,000 more than what the Xbox One did. And it generated the most hardware revenue for Nintendo in a February since February of 2011. What's interesting about that is that's with Anthem being the number one game of the month. And there being 0 Switch games in the top 20 until you reach Smash Bros. At number 7. And then following that, you got New Super Mario Bros. U at number 11, Mario Kart 8 at number 12, Zelda at 15, Super Mario Party at 18. Point is, every single Switch game on that list isn't just a first-party game, isn't just one of the IPs that will fight against the streaming services. It's an evergreen. It's one that's got to keep doing that forever. Their titles will just keep on selling. And no Apple Arcade and no Stadia release is going to affect that. And it's particularly telling if you look at the Switch-only top 10 for February, because games 1 through 9, all Nintendo published. Game number 10, Minecraft. That's the only exception here. And Japan's the same story. Smash Bros. Over 3 million copies sold in Japan already, making it the best-selling system on Switch. It only took 5 months to do, or the best-selling game on Switch. It only took 5 months to do that. And Switch is still outpacing Wii sales over there. It also, in March, Nintendo was the number one hardware manufacturer and the number one publisher in Japan. That's how strong these IPs are. And I think the only area that perhaps Stadia and Apple Arcade could affect Nintendo is on the third-party front. Because, all these first-party games, they're selling great. Third-party, maybe people will play them on Stadia instead of on Switch. But even then, if people already own the Switch for Nintendo's own games, it's a different story to now want to invest in some other platform or service to play the same third-party games, but with latency and on whatever. I mean, there's the advantage of playing on your phone, but if you have a Switch, you can play on a bigger screen already. And the fact that Nintendo leans so heavily on its first-party lineup, to me, minimizes the impact of any sort of competitor who can offer the same anytime, anywhere concept if all they're doing is doing it with the same games that you could already get on Switch, or at least a lot of them, at least in my opinion. And let's say that's the case. Let's say if Little Billy... Because what, you thought we could do a milestone 200th episode without mentioning our favorite hypothetical child?
No, it was Timmy.
Or it was Timmy. Wow. That's how long it's been. I'm sorry, Timmy. It was Timmy, not Billy. Well, he has a brother. Little did you know. For the next, he's now canon. Little Billy and Little Timmy. You're right. It was Timmy.
Yeah.
Well, let's say Little Timmy or Billy or both. Let's say they get a Switch from their parents.
Oh.
And let's say that they then look at Stadia or Apple Arcade. What are the odds the parents are going to be like, sure, we'll subscribe you to this other thing that does exactly what your Switch does, except maybe slightly prettier? I feel like it's not that high of a chance. And I think that Nintendo...
Yeah, most parents already give their kids iPads to share.
So what are the odds that you're like, you already have a Switch, you already have an iPad, now you want a Stadia? Maybe Apple Arcade will be the one that kind of works, but I don't think Stadia has a chance with that. I don't know. But... I think Nintendo's going to, they're very savvy in that they're locking in more people to that exact scenario. They're getting as many people on Switch right now as quickly as they can. So when, not necessarily intentionally, but when these other services launch, most of the games are going to be on Switch already. Most of the game, the selling point, if you could switch between your devices, that's great if you don't own a Switch, but if you own a Switch, it's not as valuable. And if you can get more people to own a Switch, it's less valuable to more people. And that might be why there are reports from both the Wall Street Journal and Eurogamer that Nintendo will be launching not one but 2 new Switch models in 2019. What? And yeah, so that in and of itself immediately resolves that ongoing debate of whether this year's new Switch is going to be a Pro Switch or a kid-friendly, cheaper Light Switch. Light Switch. Oh man, they better call it the Light Switch. Oh, wow. How did I not think of that before?
Built-in flashlight.
They better call... Yes, that'll be the killer new feature. They better call it the Light Switch. Oh, that's so good.
They could do it on the end of one of the Joy-Cons that doesn't have the AR blaster.
Exactly. The Light Switch. Oh, my God.
I mean, IR blaster, my bad.
The Light Switch. This totally redeems me for mixing up Billy and Timmy. The Light Switch is genius. Anyway, The light switch, honestly, is what I thought they were going to be doing all along. I've said as much on the show. I've said it to you off the show. But guess what? It seems like everyone's now correct because they're doing both. But I think it's
official.
Well, Wall Street Journal is saying it, so it's basically official. And I think it's significant because
I don't know if I could trust Wall Street Journal.
You could trust the Wall Street Journal. The guy who wrote this is their like Nintendo beat reporter. Like he knows what's up. He has not been wrong. It's a financial newspaper for investors.
Skeptical.
Well, sure. Well, when they announced it supposedly at E3 and release it supposedly as soon as this summer, you can go ahead and be like, "Oh, but I guess it was true." But
yeah, I mean that's literally how it'll go.
That makes sense because that is how it would go. But yeah, I think it's significant because it lets Nintendo lock in a broader audience to Switch basically ASAP. Like, if it's out this summer, that's very soon. And while I think, Nintendo has its own modes for releasing them sooner rather than later, it provides multiple entry points in time for major franchises. Like, Pokemon Animal Crossing, they can get more people in to play those. It fills the budget gap left by the dying 2DS. Like, there's all those reasons to do it. Doing it sooner does also have the advantage of getting as many people locked in as possible before any of the subscription services launch, which is another plus. But just beyond that angle of the whole streaming thing, I'm really curious, like, what these systems will be. Like, this marks the first time, I think, that Nintendo's ever released 2 revisions of a system at the same time, let alone within the same couple years. And the logic seems to be that they're trying to very quickly mirror the success of the branched 3DS line. So you're going to have a higher-end Switch, kind of like the higher-end 3DS, and you're going to have a cheaper, kid-friendly Switch, kind of like the 2DS. And, those two were selling side-by-side for years. So the cheaper one seems kind of like the obvious one in terms of predictions. I mean, we talked about it in the past. Wall Street Journal is now saying that Nintendo's going to cut features for sure to make it more affordable. They're specifically saying that HD Rumble is most likely on the chopping block. We have talked before about what that means for games like Super Mario Party, but I guess Nintendo feels that the trade-off's worth it. Like, is there even any other game on Switch that would need to lose HD Rumble?
The HD Rumble is in the controller, so in theory, if you just have your own Joy-Cons and it's still compatible.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I guess it's a non-issue. It would just have to say...
Or they could just patch it out. But are there any other games besides Mario Party that even use HD Rumble in that meaningful of a way?
Can't really think of any. 1-2 Switch.
Oh, yeah, Nintendo's fine with keeping that dead and buried.
Wow.
I mean, like, do you really think... when they have Pokemon Sword and Shield and Animal Crossing Switch and, Odyssey and Breath of the Wild still selling and Smash Bros. And Mario Kart, they're going to be like, guys, have you milked cows yet?
The game they got away with not putting in as a pack-in?
Yeah, literally. Like, that was clearly just a stopgap till they had the real games. But, like, I mean, as much as I enjoyed the cow milking game, not going to lie. But, yeah, I'm not surprised if they just don't care. But, more interesting than, I guess, just removing features, the report claims the cheaper Switch may come in an unexpected form factor, is how they word it. One that's different from the original and maybe surprising. So, that immediately makes me think it's going to be handheld only. I'm just going to say that. Like, maybe you could buy a separate... console, I guess? What?
So, like, no detachable parts?
No detachables. Yeah, maybe you'll be able to, like...
That even affects some things like the way you play Mario Odyssey. It's not going to be as fun to shake the whole console to move faster.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, hypothetically, even if it is handheld only, maybe you'll be able to still, like, buy a separate little dock or dongle and hook it to your TV. So you can still do all that when you're in TV mode. Just when you're doing handheld mode, you're a little more limited. Yeah. Like, I can't think of another way that Nintendo would shake up Switch that much besides something like that. I mean, if you want to get real crazy, maybe the light Switch, will have a clamshell design. Like, I don't know. That's something very unexpected. But it does kind of match the idea of kid-friendly. I mean, the 2DS didn't, but the 3DS did. The Game Boy Advance did.
The new 2DS doesn't.
Yeah. The new 2DS does.
I mean,
the new 2DS XL. They actually went from not doing clamshell back into the world of clamshell. So I wonder if they are actually going to clam it up. It would be a surprise.
It'd be a huge...
It'd be bulky. Yeah. But then again, if you want like a durable thing for kids to throw around, blocky's not bad per se. And, like, going on handheld only does kind of make sense. I mean, Nintendo's marketing angle for Switch has evolved. It used to be, like, play all these different ways, and now it's my Switch, my way. Like, that's their whole ad campaign they've been doing this year. And the idea of the platform on, like, the high, broad level, it seems to be, like, just to offer all these different ways to engage with your games on this one platform. Whatever way best suits you in your life, that's cool. We as Nintendo support it. We got your back. So, if they were to introduce a Switch Pocket or, like, a light Switch... that's handheld only, it kind of fits the broader like thesis statement of the system, which is just like you play these games however the hell you want. Like we will give you all the tools and you just play it. So if they're like, here's tool number 4, you can just have a handheld only one. It kind of could work. I mean, it opens up all sorts of questions, you know, like that we asked pretty much in past episodes of the show when we thought about this, like how would multiplayer work without detachable Joy-Cons? But maybe the answer is as simple as it doesn't. Like, I mean, if you look at the 2DS, they will find success without having the banner feature of the 3DS. And yeah, that feature is less critical than Joy-Cons, but perhaps Nintendo has a level of confidence that they can do it again with the light switch. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that wireless controllers still do work with the system when needed, even in the handheld version. So if you want to do multiplayer or a dock mode or something, you can still sync a Joy-Con to it, presumably. You could still, you know, hand a controller that you keep in your back. Like if you have a Pro Controller, you can hand it to your friend. They can play over your shoulder while you're playing handheld. It's still technically possible. It's not as convenient, but I don't know. Maybe Nintendo feels that's good enough. Like, especially if you think about the light switch. I'm really calling it this now. If you think about the light switch being aimed at kids, really. But if you think of the light switch being aimed at kids, like for when they're battling in Pokemon or visiting each other's Animal Crossing towns, like each kid needs their own switch anyway for that to happen. Like the 2DS and 3DS, most schoolyard gaming, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, you witness it, they had dedicated systems per person. It's not like people were like, let's play Pokemon, and they're like huddling over one system. So the idea that the Switch in a handheld-only capacity can just be a per-person device isn't that absurd as I think we originally thought it was.
Well,
I mean, that's just me. I don't know. What, I mean, do you feel like that's too far straying too far from the Switch God's light here or something?
I mean, that seems like the most extreme version they could take.
Yeah.
And it seems like the most extreme, but it also feels like the safest. So,
yeah.
So if that's the most extreme, then
they're okay.
Yeah.
But that's only half the rumor, though, because the other half is, of course, the enhanced Switch and what it will provide. I mean, what would you even want to see in a Switch Pro? I wish there's a.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it's
like I can't even think of what they can quote unquote improve on.
My
that doesn't like shoot themselves in the leg a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, because it'd be annoying to have another generation where it's like new 3DS and old 3DS. Like, oh, this game is gonna run at a consistent frame rate, and the older version won't. Which is what the 3DS and new 3DS did for some, like Monster Hunter suffered.
The closest I could see to them doing that, honestly, is like, frankly, my gut feeling is this is not going to be about specs as much in like a meaning or truthful,
just premium quality materials, actual glass instead of plastic.
Well, they could. I mean, they could clean up some stuff, but I think in terms of your whole new 3DS complaint versus 3DS and frame rate, I don't think they're even going to go as far as like, oh, it runs faster. I think what they might do is, hey, the Switch Pro or whatever you want to call it can run in handheld mode what you see on the original Switch in dock mode, and it will do it from a 1080p screen instead of a 720p screen, and the battery's bigger, and the bezel is smaller, and the Wi-Fi chip is stronger, because I know some people have complaints with that, and maybe it supports Bluetooth headphones now. Like, it might be like little quality of life things like that, and that might be enough to entice some people.
Will that entice you?
I don't know. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that you can have your games running at like optimal Switch performance is kind of cool, and it wouldn't like drag down games that don't. It'd be like they'd still say you develop for docked, you develop for handheld. It's just docked also means handheld on the Pro. Like, it's not like it's gonna, you know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna like hurt a game. It can only help.
Considering my Switch is docked like 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't make a difference for me, I guess.
It's funny because for me, I actually found myself playing handheld more than docked. I will do dock for some stuff, but a lot of the time, even Smash Bros, I'm just like chilling on the couch just playing it in handheld mode, even though the TV's one room over on a different couch. Wow. It's weird. I just really like handheld. So, like, for me, potentially something like that's cool, but it kind of depends on what they end up doing. And, like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the long-term play here is the enhanced Switch slowly replaces the OG Switch to the point that, like, it's the primary Switch. So you have, like, you know, Switch Pro, Switch, and Light Switch, and then Switch Pro slowly eats away at normal Switch until normal Switch is gone. I mean, they did it with the new 3DS. Over time, it replaced the original 3DS, and then that was it. And then they did it with the 2DS as well, and the new 2DS replacing the 2DS. So, like, I think they could do that. I don't think at first they're going to, like, right out the gate, but I think that maybe is the end goal, is to just kind of phase it out. I mean, even PS4 Pro and PS4 kind of are doing that. A little less so, but still. So yeah, I don't know. I don't like. Do you think unless they did like an actual like Switch 2, which is probably isn't like there's nothing that's gonna get you a double dip, huh?
No.
Unless Nintendo's like holograms, but
yeah, I don't think so. Especially, it'd be a while. I think I'm good on buying any new console for at least another 3 to 4 years.
I mean, it happens when you have 3 PS4s between you and your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I honestly, my biggest concern though,
I mean, my PS4 just turned a year old.
Yeah,
this
so
month.
You're good. My biggest concern.
That's crazy. It's been a year.
Is that's actually time flies. You know what else demonstrates that time flies? 200 episodes. Anyway, no, what I was gonna say is the big concern I have about these new Switches is not so much like what they'll be. How is Nintendo gonna market these things? Because if there's one thing Nintendo has not been good at, like consistently, it is naming iterations of their systems. Like, if even briefly they have 3 Switches on sale, how do you make it clear which is which? I mean, yeah, Switch Pro, Lite Switch, that's pretty clear. But knowing Nintendo, we're gonna get something ridiculous, like the new Switch, the Switch and the Switch Eye, or like the Switch Go,
oh god, they better
or
not
like
use Switch Eye or new Switch,
or Switch Go, or like imagine like like Switch Go is kind of like, oh, the handheld button, it only works on the go, but Switch Go is almost like it only works on the go, but it's still a Switch. Like, how do you?
Isn't that what the PSP tried?
Yeah, exactly. But like how? And it was like the flip phone or the slider phone version.
Slide.
But like, how do you? How's that not confusing? It's the Switch, but it doesn't switch. Like they're gonna have to like figure out a good name for it. Like I'm really worried they're gonna do something stupid, like the new 3 Switch XL Galaxy style or something like that. It's like I'm worried a little that they're gonna botch it. I mean, I like the name Light Switch a lot. Obviously, I kept saying it. I thought Switch Pocket was a cool nod to Game Boy, and that's what I used to call it until I thought Light Switch, unintentionally. But like, those names don't really work. Light Switch certainly doesn't. Switch Pocket only works if it's like a clamshell that actually fits in your pocket. But it's still kind of weird naming, so they're gonna have to figure that one out. And what's kind of funny to me is like Nintendo has been very leaky lately. I'm surprised we don't know the names. We seem to know everything else about everything else, but somehow we don't know what these systems will be called, or really actually what they actually will be in terms of like physical embodiment of their ideas. But for a company that's had a bunch of leaks, it's weird, and they have had a bunch of weird leaks actually. I mean, there was first Best Buy, who just out of nowhere suddenly in their internal employee terminal had listings for Persona 5 on Switch, Metroid Prime Trilogy, and of all things, Zelda: A Link to the Past, but for Switch. And Best Buy pretty quickly hid the listings away, even in the internal terminal. But Wario64, gaming personality and deal extraordinaire on Twitter, he claims it's still in their RSS feed, in the system's RSS feed, meaning it's not actually fully removed, it's just not active. And if they're honest to goodness mistakes, why would there be any trace like that? So there may be actually some realness to these leaks. And I think if that's the case, Zelda is definitely the weirdest, most peculiar of the bunch. Apparently, this wasn't a mix-up. Like, I mean, when you hear A Link to Past is coming to Switch, I initially was like, oh, they mean Link's Awakening. Someone made an error. Like, clearly, like, there's no way. Nope, separate listing entirely. Link's Awakening's in the system too. So what is that? Are they making a remake of A Link to the Past using the same engine as Link's Awakening? Like, maybe, but why would they announce it or have it in any ready for retailer like system?
It's gonna be one of those
early in development
games, I guess.
But like, why would they do that? Like,
it's gonna be another crazy art style. It's gonna be all like.
But why do both in the same year? Like, you're cannibalizing your own thing. Like, it doesn't. And then they have Cadence of Hyrule. That's 3 2D Zeldas in like 9 months. That doesn't make any sense. Assuming it's coming this year, even if it's coming next year, that's within a year and a half. Like, it undercuts it completely. I mean, I don't know. Would you be more interested in a remake of A Link to the Past or Link's Awakening?
I mean, I guess Link's Awakening because I only have 2 options. Well, because I guess
yes, of course, there are only 2 options.
I mean, I guess because there isn't a neither option.
There is a neither option.
No, you didn't give me one.
That's true.
So
I guess it's like if you had to pick one, which would you?
Yeah, it's like if I had to pick one, I guess A Link to the Past.
And that's why I feel too, because it's been longer since we've seen that game.
Like, even though I.
Oh wait, Link to the Past. I said Link's Awakening. Did you just change it on me?
No, I've always said Link to the Past.
Oh, I totally misheard.
Even though
I would care more about Link's Awakening because it's been longer, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, I also never play Link's Awakening. I mean, I never fully played Link's Awakening,
yeah.
But I'd still be more interested in Link to the Past, regardless.
Right. I wonder if they're counting on people. I mean, that is the bigger of the two. if they did a remake so close, I wonder.
It's not even one of my favorite games. I mean, it just exists.
Yeah. I mean, I think more logically than a remake, it could be the original.
Like a 2D Ocarina of Time almost.
I mean, that's no. Ocarina of Time's a 3D, A Link to the Past. Let's get the chronological order correct.
Tomato. Who cares?
Potato. But yeah, I think more logically, it could be, I don't know, the original Super Nintendo version, but ported to Switch. Like that would explain why it's on Switch. Like maybe it's a retail download card. But if that's the case, why wouldn't the game be part of Switch Online? Wasn't Super Nintendo game supposed to be in the Switch Online library?
That is a thought that crossed my mind, but then it doesn't make sense if the virtual console is thing.
Yeah, or not a virtual console, but Switch Online game library.
Well, yeah, whatever.
I mean, and let's say Switch on. By the way, this is totally a tangent, but let's say Switch Online.
They released any games in the last 2 months? I feel like
yes, they did. They just released. Thank you for bringing this up. I wanted to go on this tangent. They just released.
I feel like I still follow them on Twitter, but I haven't. I feel like I completely missed what they've released in the last 2 or 3 months.
I remember. I couldn't tell you 2 or 3 months ago, but I can tell you last week was Punch-Out, Super Mario: The Lost Levels, and Star Soldier, something like that. And the reason Punch-Out is so memorable in my mind is because Mike Tyson had like a weird Twitter flip out about it. He thought he saw a story. Well, this is what everyone's assuming happened. Because it makes no sense otherwise. He saw, we think, a story that Punch-Out is now on Nintendo Switch. And he's like, what? But I'm Punch-Out. I'm Mike Tyson. So he tweeted...
Did he not have this when the Wii one came out?
You would think he would have had this for any of the 5 entries he's not in. But nope. So he tweeted, heard at Nintendo was doing the new Punch-Out without even contacting me. It won't be the same. My knockouts made the game. That's whack. And he also tweeted, Mr. Dream, everyone tell at Nintendo America who they think of when they hear Punch-Out. And I just really want to tell him, does he know Punch-Out existed before he was involved with it? There was a version before him, and there have been like 3 or 4 since.
Didn't he realize that Mr. Dream got swapped out a long time ago?
No, Mr. Dream's in the... Well, when they re-released the NES version, Mr. Dream's always in it.
No, I know, that's
He's in the Switch version. He saw the story about... the Switch
no, I know, that's
NES thing.
No, that's like, why didn't he have
Oh, you mean, why was he swapped out for Mr. Dream?
No, like, if he's getting upset about Mr. Dream now, like, why... Like, I guess he just somehow didn't hear about this?
Probably, but some people are like, oh, is he leaking a new game? It's like, no, he's not. No, there's no way Nintendo's like, hey, Mike Tyson, we're making a new Punch-Out and you're still not in it. See you in 2020. Like, no, there's clearly, like, he saw this, but I just thought it was, like, a really funny, weird moment that is only possible when Nintendo's back on top for, like, Mike Tyson to be like, how dare you? Like, how dare you, Nintendo? And the funny thing is, like, the boxing community all, like, rally behind him. Like, yeah, how dare you, Nintendo? Mike Tyson made this. Like, no, guys, he was licensed in for a single game. It was an arcade game first. Then it was on NES with him. Then he was gone again. That was on Wii and re-released multiple times with Mr. Dream. So, like, just relax.
Oh, there's a Kirby's Adventure SP.
Yes. Oh, yeah, they're doing special save files. Like, they just did one for Kid Icarus as well. Yeah, I do like that when they do the new updates, they don't tell you what the special save files will be. You just have to, like, see it at launch. Like, they're nice little fun, tiny, tiny surprises every month. While the other ones, they give you at least a week.
Adventure of Link got a special one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, back to...
Star Soldier, you mentioned.
Star Soldier, yeah. I think that's not the... I think I said every word but Soldier. I was like, Star Shooter, Oh, no, I did say Soldier, yeah. But yeah, there's still and it's to Nintendo's credit, they did 3 whole games.
The whole list.
That's
Nothing exciting.
Yeah, to Nintendo's credit, they did 3 whole games this month. Usually they do 2. So just think, if they're doing 3, maybe in half a year they'll do like 4, 5. But back to Best Buy though. My other thought about what A Link to the Past could be is, what if it's a pre-order bonus for Link's Awakening? Kind of like how they did Ocarina of Time for Wind Waker back in the GameCube days, or like maybe how they did the Zelda Collector's Edition back with every game up till Wind Waker in like 2004. Like, that would be kind of cool if there was like, hey, here's a free download of this classic Zelda game while you wait for this other remake of this other classic Zelda game.
Yeah, I can see them doing that.
But again, it undercuts the idea of joining Switch Online. Like, what? I don't get it. It really is a mystery. It's a mystery to everybody. But the 2 that make more sense, Metroid Prime Trilogy and Persona 5, those... You know, like Metroid Prime Trilogy, that's already basically a known thing. It's not confirmed yet, but so many reports about it, so many people saying it's done or they know about it. Like, I feel like that one wasn't a shock. Likewise, Persona 5 just makes sense on Switch. I mean, Joker's in Smash. The timing of it's right. There's some sort of Persona live stream on the 25th of this month. And the big Smash 3.0 update with Joker is supposed to hit this month as well. So pairing them, the announcement of Persona with Joker.
We're going to be halfway done with this month by Monday.
I know, and there's still half a month to go. So,
well, goes with the usual Nintendo, like, oh, it's coming out in April. Oh, that means April 30th.
Remember the one time they didn't do that with Piranha Plant, and it came out January? It was supposed to come out in February, and it hit the last day of January.
Oh,
that was cool. But yeah, I think pairing the Joker release with any news about Persona 5 on Switch, which seems more and more likely since it's in Best Buy system, like that just makes sense. A lot of people were saying that they kind of suspected that would happen when it was first revealed at the Game Awards. Joker, I mean. I was saying that, I think. So yeah, it just makes sense. But it sounds like beyond just Joker, the 3.0 update actually might have some pretty cool additions for Smash, because we know Stage Builder's in there. It's coming back. And this too was a leak, but from a very unlikely source. It was leaked by Nintendo themselves in their own commercial.
Like when they leak Ganondorf on Smash 3DS?
Yeah, essentially. Was it the same sort of situation, a commercial?
It was from a trailer on YouTube.
Right, yeah, because that's basically what happened.
And then they edited it out.
So this one was from a commercial right at the beginning of one of the new Switch My Way ads. There's a kid. He's shown with Smash. Behind him is the menu of the game, and in the bottom corner, very blurry but still somewhat legible, is a new Stage Builder icon. So there you go. 3.0 update. Stage Builder's back. So now that we know it's coming, I'm curious, as someone that actually used Stage Builder, what would you want out of a new Stage Builder? If they're gonna do the ultimate Stage Builder, what does it take to actually improve upon it?
I mean, I never really cared for any of the other Stage Builders that much, because outside of the fact that they let me build the basketball stages. So as long as it lets me build the basketball stage, I'm good.
Now I had pie in the sky ideas of what they could do. Personally, I think they should go Mario Maker on it. I think they should let you share the stages to some sort of online repository, and I think you should be able to.
How they used to.
But could you sort by rating and top download? And was it like Mario Maker? Was it that
Yeah,
useful?
there was a whole service.
It?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they did that. They did that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I think they should do that. I guess it's not a pie in the sky idea at all. It's very matter of fact. Well, here's the second half of it that I was gonna say. I think they should also make it work with the Switch Online app, because Smash World is still supposedly a thing, and that's supposed to come out sometime in the early part of this year. Early's almost over. It's halfway to May. I think what they should do is all that stuff I was saying that I thought they didn't do, which I guess they did, they should now actually do, but in the Switch Online app. Because wouldn't that be cool if you're browsing Smash World and you're watching gameplay videos and you're browsing stages and you're like, yeah, download that stage, and then when you get back to your Switch, the stage is ready to play on.
Do you think they'll announce or release Smash World with this update?
I hope so. We deserve to at least know what's going on with it. Well, we don't deserve anything, but you know what I mean. It would be nice if they.
Wow, look at you, Mr. Entitled.
I backed off it real fast because it sounded pretty bad. But no, I think we're due for an update. If Nintendo really wants to sell the Switch Online app as a thing, you gotta get more games in there. It's still only Splatoon. I mean, they just updated it to version 1.5 a week ago, and the only thing it added, I think, was more language support, supposedly. 1.5 sounds like a pretty big update, though. I imagine there might be some more hidden stuff in there, perhaps. But yeah, we shall see. We shall see. I will say, though, for all the stuff that did leak, which is a fair amount, the Switches, the games, I'm impressed one big thing didn't leak, and that is Nintendo's true VR ambitions. Sure, we knew Labo VR was coming, but the way Nintendo just casually dropped information right up to the biggie that, Mario Odyssey and Zelda Breath of the Wild would be gaining VR modes.
Pleasantly surprised. It's nice.
Yeah,
it's nice to feel that sometimes.
It's surprisingly stealthy of them. I was impressed, and I don't think anyone really saw it coming. Right? It really fell out of left field, especially Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because
I wish they had, kind of
done something
fixed
real
the
with
game
it.
so it was in first person the whole time, but it is what it is.
I do think it's. Yeah, for Breath of the Wild,
I guess if you want, you could hold your arrow out the whole time.
I guess.
Your bow and arrow, and then
the thing about Breath of the Wild is it feels like it's supposed to be less VR and more 3D. It's almost like they're kind of doing.
It is 3D.
No, but I mean they're kind of doing it's more of a nod to how the 3DS was oh look, you're peering into this little box, this little diorama. But the plan to have it work for the whole game. That's kind of cool that the entire game could be viewed that way, and I do like with Mario
Odyssey.
They
expect you to hold on to the headset the whole time.
So that's the wrinkle of all this.
Is there going to be a strap you can build, or I guess you could
not officially.
I mean, I guess you could lay down on your stomach and just put you're supposed to be laying down on a table, or I guess off your bed, but have a chair out so that you could just I don't know.
Well,
lay your head on the headset.
Here's the weird...
or on your back and just put it up, I guess.
Yeah, and just rest on your face. But like, it's by design, I think, that you don't have a strap at all. Because like Nintendo, by doing this, is able to say, unlike real VR, this VR can be aimed at kids 7+, 7 and up, like the 3DS. Normal VR has a age requirement of 13 and up for kids' eyes, and they can do 7 and up because people will want to put down the headset. Like, it feels very much by design as a natural stop or prolonged play sessions, because unfortunately your arms are going to get tired. And for Nintendo, that's fortunate because it lets them be like, well, you're not going to hold it that long, so you're going to take it off, your eyes will adjust, you put it back on, it's fine. But for like someone that wants to do a prolonged play session, your eyes are going to get tired. And so, or not your eyes, sorry, your arms are going to get tired. And that's especially true because you have to hold the thing. You're playing the games. I mean, think about it. The Joy-Cons are sticking out of the Labo. You are playing the games, potentially, by holding the Labo up to your face and holding the Joy-Cons and using them while it's in your face. Like, everyone listening, like, grab your Switch, put it about 4 inches from your face, and try playing it with the Joy-Cons, like, near your ears.
Sounds horribly uncomfortable.
That's presumably what they want you to do. Because, like, Zelda doesn't have special controls. The Super Mario Odyssey stuff potentially does. It's actually 3 new set of missions in 3 new kingdoms. The Cap Kingdom, Seaside Kingdom, Luncheon Kingdom. And what you do is you collect coins and musical notes, and if you collect enough musical notes, the citizens of that kingdom will do a performance in the style of the New Donk City performance, which I'm gonna totally do because I love that New Donk City scene, and that sounds great. And even better, you'll then be able to watch those performances as well as all the other games' cutscenes in a new theater mode they're adding, which will support the VR headset as well. So, like, that's all really cool, but it's gonna be super uncomfortable to do it because, yeah, you're holding it right up against your face. But I do think it's interesting.
Man, and that split 720 resolution.
Yeah, and you're gonna see big blotchy pixels, and you're gonna see like jagged edges, and it's gonna be great. But I do think it's smart Nintendo's doing this. Like a couple episodes ago, I made the point that Nintendo wants Labo VR to do well. They need to expand the headset beyond just the Labo kit. And obviously, Nintendo had this in the works for months and didn't just hear me go.
Part of the Mario Kart package. You got the pedal.
Yeah.
You got the wind pedal. No, you need the wind pedal. Yeah, you got the regular pedal, the steering wheel, and I guess now this.
And the motorcycle handlebars, yeah.
Yeah, the motorcycle handlebars. And now you can do first-person Mario Kart.
Well, how do you hold it?
You have to have a buddy.
You gotta have 5 hands.
You need a buddy.
Yeah, you just have a VR holding man. But yeah, it's like this is clearly something Nintendo's been developing for a while. Like, it's not like they heard me go, maybe you should make it like the Wii Zapper or Amiibo and have it do little things in lots of games. Like, first of all, they don't listen to us. So even if they did, they're not gonna be like, yeah, let's turn that around in a month and release this. Like, no way. But it was kind of a cool, like, aha, there it is moment when I saw them announce it. I was like, ah, yeah, perfect. And it is kind of big that they're doing it with 2 of their biggest games on Switch. But I do think it's really an interesting way that Nintendo's just like testing VR in general. Like, ignoring the fact it's like, oh cool, they did the thing I said. Like, obviously this is a first pass. And I feel like I don't remember if you made this point while we were recording or before recording, but like, there's no better way to do a first pass than to literally do the bare minimum of investment and just throw some cardboard in a box and then be like, let's see what happens. Just make some quick little modes in 2 of their biggest games. Because, if it takes off, if it proves to actually be worth Nintendo's while, the Switch is kind of positioned to just naturally evolve into a proper casual VR machine. Like that Switch Pro that hypothetically is coming, use some of those up specs to handle VR a bit better. Have that high-res screen if there is one. Help with the screen door effect and the blotchy 720 resolution you were talking about. Have people pop off the Joy-Cons and they can use them as kind of on-the-fly like Oculus-style controllers, and then, stick a headset on a plastic, or stick a head strap on a plastic headset, and boom, you have like a legit Switch VR situation. But they don't have to invest in that should Labo VR bomb. Like, I realize I'm getting ahead of myself here a bit, but there's just so much potential. Like, this is like the perfect like test case. And the idea of having some sort of like quote-unquote real Nintendo games leveraging VR right out of the gate on April 25th, only 2 weeks after Labo VR launches, like, that's gotten a lot more people interested in trying out Labo VR. Like, I think it's working for Nintendo. I mean, I went from not planning to buy one to buying a starter kit that is currently sitting right outside in the trunk of my car as we record this. And what's funny is I was super duper, well, you know all about it, Angel, but I was super duper close to actually caving and getting the full $80 kit. Except, guess what? It's sold out everywhere on launch day. I originally made a pre-order at Best Buy to pick it up the next day in store. It was set for Friday. I get an email like Friday afternoon saying it's not going to be till next Friday. Then I get an email that night saying actually it could be as late as May 12th. I'm like, well, screw that. I want it sooner. Like, that's crazy talk, Best Buy. So I go to Amazon, completely sold out, the $80 kit, the full kit. I go to Target's website. Shipping will take 2 weeks, so, we're back in almost May, and it's completely sold out in stores. GameStop, completely sold out in stores. Walmart, completely sold out in stores. I'm talking about for all of LA. And I don't necessarily know if this means it's a runaway hit. For all we know, Nintendo was playing it so safe that unlike, because all the other Labo kits underperformed, maybe they just shipped a bunch of the $40 starter kits to stores, which is what I have. I had no trouble buying that. But then perhaps they only sent one $80 kit to each store, or maybe not even. Maybe some stores didn't get any, or maybe it's only like two. Or like maybe they secretly want people to actually spend $90, because if you buy the starter kit, you can also buy expansions at $20 a pop on store.nintendo.com. So maybe like, we'll call it $80, but we'll make it so hard to find that you'll end up spending $90 and we get $10 more out of everyone. And no one's going to complain about the price because they're just like, oh, it's so popular. Like, who knows what the, real reason is. Although I do like my tinfoil hat. It depends on how they break down the numbers. Sometimes they release the SKUs, sometimes they just lump it all together. I don't think Nintendo, honestly, that's a total tinfoil hat conspiracy. I don't think Nintendo's actually, lying to us about the $8 kits. But the fact that it's selling at least moderately well enough to be sold out in all of LA on launch day, to me, opens up the doors to potentially more VR for Nintendo and other games gaining Labo support VR at the very least, which of course leads to the question of, there's a bunch of stuff on Switch. What would actually be a good fit for getting a VR mode? The one that comes to my mind immediately is ARMS. Now, you need a head strap for it, but you already got the motion controls. You already kind of have the behind-the-back camera. It's not that hard to just zoom in a little and hide the character model. Granted, that would change some of the mechanics, so maybe you leave it third person and you just have it be kind of like a...
Just Mario and Rabbids would look neat, just because everything already looks
diorama effect.
Yeah, like a diorama.
I think Captain Toad could benefit from that, too. Because Captain Toad has that kind of diorama look.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it's funny, there's the character designer for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, around the time this was all announced, just tweeted VR, ... And I'm like, honestly, even if they did like a Breath of the Wild style VR, 3D, not really VR, just 3D thing for Xenoblade, that I could see being kind of like a cool little value. Like, they could go full amiibo.
I'm sure people already 3D printed a new holder for it.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, for sure they did. But it's just like there's...
It's going to be like a built-in helmet kind of deal.
Yeah, and that's, well, not so much the 3D printed built-in helmet idea, but the idea that all these games just have little piecemeal bits and pieces of VR, that's what got me to cave and buy it. Like, that's kind of cool. Even if it's like, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, it's the same reason I bought some amiibo that I bought. Granted, they're still in the box, so actually it's not the reason. But hypothetically, it could be the reason. So yeah, like, I think there's opportunity. If we want to go one step further, it'd be cool to see games like Resident Evil and Brawl Chronicles or like Link's Crossbow Training. They can make the jump to Switch. Kind of like how the Zapper worked. You don't necessarily need to require Labo VR's gun, the blaster gun, to play these games. They can just port them as like HD remakes to Switch. You can use the Joy-Cons just like you would use the Wii Remote. And then, hey, nice little bonus if you have Labo VR, check it out. We support that too. That's a cool way to get a bunch of old light gun rail shooters over. So I don't know. Like I think there's a lot of potential opportunity here. Really, I just want them to put Virtual Boy games on Switch. Like, you were telling me there's something in Labo VR that already is an Easter egg, a Virtual Boy Easter egg of sorts, right?
That must mean they've tried it, and then they realized, no.
I don't think so, though. Not necessarily.
Yeah, they must have tried it.
Well, what is the thing?
There's no way they
What is the thing in Labo that they do for Virtual Boy? Spoilers for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled.
Know.
Oh, you don't? Okay. I don't either. I just know it's a video of some sort, but I don't really know what it looks like a video. But yeah, I think they could pull it off. I want them to pull it off. Like, I think it'd be super cool if they made them free to like all the Switch Online subscribers. I mean, they do it with NES games. We talked about that earlier, and Nintendo's shown they're open to more unique experiences for their subscribers with stuff like Tetris 99. So why not just do like the ultimate value add and take these games that have not been playable outside of Virtual Boy and make them playable to a broader audience? Like, they're not going to let us ever own the games. Like, I'd rather have a way to own them, but that's not going to happen. They're not going to sell them. So just throw them on a subscription service. It's the next best thing, honestly. Like, just why not? And they don't even have to be good at that point.
I heard the Wario one was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Wario and supposedly Mario Tennis isn't horrible. Mario VR Tennis, I mean. It inspired the Mario Tennis series, so at the very least, it's an interesting piece of history. At the very least, it's the Star Fox 2 of Mario Tennis. Like, Star Fox 2 was not that great, but it was kind of a cool thing just to play a piece of history. And if they're free in a streaming service, it doesn't matter if they're that good. It doesn't matter if they, are subpar, because, like, you're playing history. You're not paying money to be like, oh, is this the pinnacle of the Wario Land experience? No, it's just like this crazy Wario Land you never have had a chance to play before. So I would really like for Nintendo to do that. But, I mean, before we get ahead of ourselves, we have to see what Mario and Zelda are like. We have to see if that works. So I have the Labo Star Kit. You and I are going to mess with it. We're going to play the shooter game. We're going to play Mario and Zelda once that hits, and we'll be sharing impressions of all that next episode. But this does segue nicely into a game you want to talk about this episode for our What We've Been Playing segment, which, with all this talk of turning normal Switch games into VR, it's worth knowing that actually a decent number of VR games have come to Switch over the last however many months. Stuff like Battlezone, or in this case, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yeah, I finally got to play that after having it for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But
we both first played it at E3. But now you've actually gotten to,
it was a nice little group of people.
Yeah.
I played it with, it was like 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really fun. Definitely, I mean, you don't lose that much without the VR. Whoever just has the Switch just turns around, or it's just, I mean, there isn't even really anything that they can cheat with, because essentially the person on the Switch is defusing a bomb that has a bunch of different modules on it, and each module requires its own very specific way of getting defused.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else has a bomb manual, preferably on their electronic device, or I guess you could print one out. And I would just grab the link and just share it with everyone else that's playing. And then we all just focus on different parts of the manual. Like, there's a module, for example, that requires you to follow very specific steps based on the word they give. So if they say the word on display is let's say they have a number on display that's like a 4, and then they read off the numbers on the bottom, and then you tell them, okay, all right, if you see a 4, press the 3rd button from the right. Okay, now what number do you see? Oh, I see a 2. Okay, now press the 1st button, and then they say, okay, the next button is 5. Okay, now press the first number that I told you, or the first number on the button that you pressed, and then that might be in a different position because you're looking at the number, not the position, and the last one might be press the 3rd thing I told you to press, or something like that. So there's a lot of teamwork, a lot of communication. Some of the modules are really tricky to figure out. Like, there's a basic wire cutting one, but then there's a more advanced one where you have to look at a crazy looking Venn diagram and figure out, like, okay, does your wire have 3 stripes? What color are the stripes? Does it have, what is that wire connected to from? Is it from going from a number to, I think, like from 1 to a B, or 2 to C, or something like that.
Right.
It's pretty crazy, and the nice thing is that you can really adjust it to your difficulty. So, I mean, at some point, there were some modules that we got really, really good at. Like, there's like a maze where on the manual side, you see the walls of the maze and exactly how to get anywhere in the maze. But on the console side, you just see these dots that indicate, I guess, potential directions you could move. But you don't know if you can move there because there might be a wall there. So all you have to go by is telling your teammate, all right, I am 4 dots down, 1 over, and I want to get to 3 dots over, 1 down. And then the person has to figure out which map, I guess, which coordinate that lines up with. And then they go, all right, go 2 up, 2 left, 2 up again, 2 right, so on.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start getting better and better at some, you might defuse some modules like within a couple seconds, and even then, like, starting off with 3 modules or even 4 is really, really hard, and it could go up to, I believe, 12.
Oh, jeez.
And 12 just sounds ridiculous. Like, yeah, and you can also adjust the time too. So if you're like a pro, I mean, with a group of people that literally know every single module and how to solve it inside and out, you could literally set it to like 1 minute and 12 modules. And even like as you're solving the puzzle, sometimes you have to rotate the entire bomb itself, because a password for something might require you to know whether it uses AA batteries or a giant C battery, if the serial code ends in an even number or an odd number, if anything else is written on it. And every once in a while, sometimes like an obnoxiously loud alarm will go off, and you can either wait it out or you can select the alarm and press a button on it. And the I don't know. The bomb itself is pretty easy to control. Shoulder buttons to rotate it around. The analog sticks. It's pretty basic stuff. Really fun party game. We ended up playing it. I don't know. It's probably like 4 a.m.
Wow.
We were.
When did you start?
Like around midnight.
Wow. Okay. That right there is an endorsement.
Yeah, we played it for. We were pretty determined to like beat it. Yeah, to beat it. Yeah, it took us a while to beat it.
Right.
Yeah. It was a fun night, but I would really recommend it. I don't know how much it costs though.
$15. I looked it up.
There you go.
It's my job. I look up all the game prices.
Yeah, for that price, that's pretty good.
Yeah, like I enjoyed my time at E3, but it sounds like there's way more to it in the final form.
Yeah, and that was just like the quote unquote like exhibition mode. So
there are other modes?
Yeah, I think there's like some like pre-made challenges that you could enter. Like we just made one where we just like created, all right, we want this many modules and we want like this much time.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
I do think it's cool that Switch is able to sort of I won't say recreate the VR experience, but it's like one of the few consoles that can sort of handle the VR experience without offering VR necessarily. Because like, something like Keep Talking is very asymmetric gameplay, which is very much a thing that VR is good for. And also like other games, just the idea that you have this sort of little portable screen that can mirror the feel of VR, where you can use like a viewfinder, kind of like how like you were talking in episode 2 ago about like the Google Street View app on Wii U, how that did that. Like it's kind of cool that Switch can do that to kind of make its own pseudo VR experiences, or like allow for asymmetry for stuff like Keep Talking.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to play an asymmetrical game for once.
Yeah, that was one of the great things about Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like a lot of this podcast actually is kind of rooted in the Wii U days. We were at the tail. We started at the tail end of Wii. We went through all of Wii U, and now we're on to Switch. Yeah, it's been a ride. It's been fun. Like we promised at some point we're gonna reminisce about the 200 episodes. I think we're at that point. It has been a fun ride. Like it's been cool, at least from my perspective. Like Keep Talking's an indie game. We talk a lot about indie games. We talked about a bunch of them last episode. It's been cool, like to watch the indie scene grow. Like we've kind of been like indie adjacent, or like very loosely connected, and to see it go from barely being a thing to being like such a driving force of Nintendo's platforms now, and like Nindies are like such a huge thing, like a million sellers, and they're doing best on Nintendo, and before it was like only this really like ragtag band of companies that felt comfortable trying it. Like it's been cool to be like there for that, and in some cases even being able to signal boost some of those smaller titles. Not by much, we're not the biggest podcast, but companies against opportunities to try their games, to review their games. It's been fun. It's kind of a neat little, like, I would say we didn't obviously facilitate any of the growth of the indie scene, but we got to like kind of just partake, and that was fun. That's kind of cool. It's not, I don't think when we got into this we thought that like there'd be a cottage industry that blows up and we'd be sort of like holding on to the rocket ship from the outside, but it's kind of what we did.
Yeah, confidently say there's a lot of games I probably would have never tried out if it wasn't for the podcast.
Yeah, I could, like, for me,
like events that I wouldn't have gone to. So.
Right, yeah, like for me, like
I thought to go to.
Like Cluster Truck was kind of a cool game to try. I never would have played that, but it's basically an endless runner turned on Z-axis. I like that. There's that game Lightspear we played a few years ago, which I don't even know how to describe. It's like you're throwing spears, but like it's like a javelin side scroller game, but it's pretty fun. And just recently we were talking about Rico, the shooter, which definitely want to check out. But it's a really fun co-op shooter. Or like
Just Shades and Beats is definitely my favorite.
Yeah,
from all the ones we tried, because that one, I remember seeing the trailer on the Nindies Direct showcase and thinking like, all right, it looks cool, but I was kind of like, all right, I don't need any more games right now. But then when we played it, it was like, whoa, I really need this game.
Yeah, I think both of us, we played it where it's like, yep, buying this. And then like even, to go back a little, well actually first I also want to mention Guardians Between as my pick for indie game last year. That was another copy that just kind of, I didn't know much about. It fell in my lap, and yeah, it's a really cool, like, nostalgic puzzle platformer thing. But if you go all the way back, I think our very first review copy we ever received, I want to say it was Armillo on Wii U. Do you remember Armillo?
That the Armadillo game?
Yeah, so that was like
on the Wii U?
Yeah, that was like way early on, and it was like Marble Madness or Monkey Ball. I think I described it at the time like Marble Madness or Monkey Ball meets like Mario Galaxy, but with like the spin dash from Sonic kind of tossed in as well. And it was fun. Like it was fun. It was it's not so. It's more like a collectathon from I remember like 90s style collectathon, but like a manageable amount of collectathoning. And it was cool because it had the Sonic spin dash and stuff, but it wasn't like really about combat. It was about just like zigzagging through these mazes and collecting things, and they were kind of these like Tetrisphere. If anyone's played that 3D Tetris game, there's like that sort of like globe that you're navigating. It was cool. It was different.
Definitely one of those games that makes you think like, whoa, like there's still a lot of there's like so much untapped potential with like indie games.
Yeah, and
you would never see with AAA.
Yeah, to see it go from like something like Carmelo and all that, like going to
Nintendo.
Nintendo
It's kind of weird sometimes.
Nintendo's very weird sometimes.
Yeah, like Captain Toad being like a side thing in Mario 3D World,
and then launching
and that in itself feels like something like an indie would come. I mean,
totally.
It's pretty much like a 3D version of Fez, I guess, but.
Yeah, essentially.
Well, I guess not really. Fez is just the closest thing I could think of, just because of the whole rotating thing.
I mean, rotating's a huge part of Captain Toad because you have to find all the hidden things by rotating the stage. It's very similar in a surface level.
But Fez also kind of reminds me of like Monument Valley, because that one is like things you wouldn't normally be able to jump on become jumpable when you rotate it a certain way.
Right. Also like an MC Escher sort of situation. Yeah, but it's been kind of cool to see stuff growing. And you mentioned events, like we've been fortunate to get to attend a bunch of different events and have
there's a bunch of like random like Nintendo mall tours.
Mall tours I would go to either way.
Yeah, I want to say we went to them before.
I made it a point to go to every single one on opening day of the mall tour up until a year or two ago when I realized that. So they used to have really elaborate mall tours. They used to have like 1 year it was a giant Wii U logo. Like the booth was a Wii U logo. You look at it from the ceiling.
That was cool.
Yeah, we went to that Airstream. Yeah, but that was before we did the podcast. I think it was right before. But yeah, like one booth looked like a Wii U. They had an Airstream every year. They used to do things at their summer and winter tours where they would like recreate environments. It's like, oh, you're playing a Yoshi game? Sit in this egg chair next to a giant smiling flower with Yoshi. Or like, oh, you're playing a Kirby game? Here's a massive Kirby that's just going to stare at you while you play. Now it's just kind of like, here's a big screen TV on a temporary wall. And we painted the wall in Mario colors. So it's a little less exciting. But they used to get really elaborate. They used to be almost like little playgrounds. And those were always kind of fun to go to. And I wouldn't feel the need to go, though, if I was covering for the podcast.
Definitely E3.
E3, yeah, that's it. Especially this year. I don't know if I announced it on the podcast. It's a big deal to me because...
You made it in?
I made it in. Unfortunately, they only gave us one because I think we're still a little too small. But, like, since... I don't know how many people listening know the backstory around town, but I've run this site in some capacity since high school. Really since middle school in some ways. And it used to be like a daily news site. And then during college, I took a break because I wanted to have a life. What a crazy concept. But then after college, we were doing a podcast since. And since the high school days, my like, not mantra, but my thinking was, we made it if we get into E3. We made it if we're press. And granted, E3's not what it was. It's Sony's not even there this year, so there's probably not as many, it might be much easier to get in. I don't know. But nonetheless, the goal I set out for when I was like 14, it happened. Nintendo's going to E3 as press, and that's super cool. And likewise, we've gotten to do the indie mixes year after year, and those are really fun, where you get to go hang out with indie developers, talk about the games, and then just play stuff. Like I remember one of the years we went, they had a 90 or 110-inch screen or something like that, and there was just Gang Beasts playing on it. And Gang Beasts is a super fun multiplayer game, and a huge crowd was forming. All these developers and other press and industry, and we're all just hanging out playing Gang Beasts. And I'm not trying to like toot our own horn, like look at all these cool experiences we had. But
Rumble was cool like that.
Rumble, yeah. Wait, what? Oh yeah.
When we played Rumble with all these people.
Yeah, that was super fun. Even things like one thing that really stuck out to me is our friends at USAopoly gave us a bunch of board games once. A year or two ago, regular listeners might recall, but we got two sets. It was Zelda Clue, a Mario card game called Mario Power Up, Super Mario Power Up, and then Mario board game called Super Mario Level Up. One set we got a review, one set we gave away to a listener. But what's crazy is, like, to this day, we have a group of friends, like your sister and your brother-in-law and, like, that whole group that we hang out with. We still play those games with them. We still play Zelda Clue. We still, a lot, surprisingly, play Mario Level Up.
Yeah, that ended up being
it ended up being a huge hit, yeah. And it's just like all these things are through the podcast, and it's not to be like super braggadocious because, like, I could keep going. Like, we got an interview with Zelda voice actor once. That was cool, written interview, but still got to work with Nintendo directly. That was really fun. The point I think we're trying to get at with this is in these 7.5...
Our lives are better than yours.
Yeah, no, it's that we're superior to you in every way. And no, not at all. The point I'm trying to get at here is, like, we've been at this for 7.5 years. We've done 200 episodes. And the thing that is keeping us going, the thing that makes it all possible, is there are people on the other end of this recording. There are people on the other end of when I publish something on the site, or you write something for the site, or I put photos on the site, or what have you, or I make a banner, or, you know, I go and creepily try not to take pictures of children at an event that's Nintendo clearly designed for children, but I just want to show you how cool the event looks without the children. Like, all that, we're doing it because there's someone there receiving it. There's someone there that's into it. There's someone there that's listening to us, reading us, watching us, other verbing us that I can't think of. Like, it's really cool. And the fact that we've been doing this for so long and have people still sticking with us, and we have people who, like, seem, as far as I can tell, to genuinely enjoy us. I could be wrong. Like, there was an E3 where I met a couple of you in person, and it was really cool. That, like, it's also really weird. I'm gonna be honest. When you meet someone that you hear talk, like, if I meet someone that I've heard talk for 200 episodes or 20 episodes or 2 episodes, I know more about them than they know about me, so I act more familiar towards them than they probably will act towards me. And I found that when I'm on the other end of that, it was kind of funny, because they'd be like, you know, I'd make a reference and be like, oh yeah, I talk about the podcast, da, da, da. And they're like my best bud, but I've never interacted with them. But because they listen to us for so long, they just kind of naturally are like more like, oh yeah, I know you, I've known you forever. It's like, I never met you, but so, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're in like one mindset of like, oh, I'm meeting someone new, and there's like, oh yeah, this guy's cool, I know him. It's like totally different wavelengths, but it's fun. It's cool to meet you guys. And the point I was getting at is all this stuff is because there are people on the other end, and it is very much appreciated. And we wouldn't be doing this if there's no one there. So thank you to you guys for allowing us to do it. Not really allowing us, but for making this worth it. For giving us... You don't really have a platform if there's no one there at the platform. I mean, I guess you could. It's like a tree falling in the woods. Does it make a sound? So it is appreciated. It's very much appreciated. And to show that appreciation... well, actually, is there anything you want to say before
No, you pretty much cover all the bases. So just thank you very much.
So to show that appreciation,
you literally cover.
I know. I get very excited about the fact that, like, we have this whole thing. Random Nintendo is I'm not keeping it in my pants. That's the whole point. We have this whole thing. Like, Random Nintendo for me has been such. It's weird because it's been like such a big part of like who I am for so long that, like, if in some obviously one day this thing's gonna end. Who knows when? But we're not gonna be doing this when we're 80.
Episode 201.
What? Oh, it ends at episode 201. So, fun fact, it ends right now. No, but whenever it ends, it's gonna be weird because there's gonna be like a piece of me missing almost, because it's like it's been so core to me since I was like a kid, basically. But we'll worry about that then. The point I'm getting at is we want to say thank you to you guys for being there with us along the way, for supporting us, for writing reviews of us on iTunes, rating us on iTunes. If you haven't yet done that, by the way, that actually helps us a lot. So if you could give us a little shout out on Apple Podcasts, as it's now called, much appreciated. But no, we do want to say thank you by doing a contest. So to that end, I mentioned at the top of the show that there are as many episodes of the Random Nintendo podcast as there are micro games in the original WarioWare. So if you would like to win one of 2 different $20 eShop gift cards, we are going to give away 2 separate ones to 2 different winners. Here's what you need to do. Tell us your favorite WarioWare micro game. That's it. You can describe it in a sentence. You can literally just say the command that the game says. If you want to specify which WarioWare it's from, that would be cool too. But I was trying to think of what is the most random contest we could do for a thing called Random Nintendo. And I think just having you pick your favorite thing from the most random Nintendo game in the most random way that has nothing to do with the podcast is probably the most random Nintendo thing we could have ever done. So that's why you can go leave a comment at randomnintendo.com on the blog post for episode 200, Looking to the Future, and tell us your favorite WarioWare micro game, and you can win $20. It's that simple. That's all it is. So once you do enter, you probably want to follow and subscribe to us so you can hear the winner announcement in our next episode. That next episode will arrive on April 28th, I believe. Dramatic pause while I check the calendar. I think it's April 28th. I can't stop talking because dead air is bad. No, 26th is the Friday.
Yeah, 28th.
The 28th. Okay. That's gonna be a pretty good episode, to be honest. Let me rephrase. if I do say so myself, 2 weeks in advance, that's going to be a pretty good episode because Nintendo's financials for the fiscal year end will be out. So we're not just going to have new numbers to talk about how Switch is doing as a whole and what's happening next, but there could be some news from the corresponding briefing, like maybe they're going to talk about that new Switch hardware we speculated on, or new VR plans, or maybe finally Mario Kart Tour. Like, where is Mario Kart Tour? We should be knowing about Mario Kart Tour by now. So who knows? Plus, we're going to have those Labo VR impressions I mentioned a little while ago. And just to reiterate, we're going to have our winners, so you better enter. But the easiest way to make sure you stay on top of that is you could follow us at Random Nintendo on Twitter. You could subscribe, and if you wish to review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, YouTube. Our channel is randomnintendo.com. You can follow us individually. I am JSR7, and I say lots of random things on Twitter. He is Wero, WEIRO _O, and he says fewer random things on Twitter. Yeah, that pretty much does it. Well, like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much for helping us get to 200.
Damn, 200.
Yeah, 200. And I think really the only way we can end this is the same way we started, and that's with an air horn. The problem is I don't have the app open, so now I'm buying a little time while I open it. Okay. And look at that. We're actually at exactly 200 on the clock. So that's 200, our episode milestone. We did it, guys. Here's your air horn. We'll see you in 2 weeks.